There's the magic words. Okay. I call to order the December 13th, 5:30, actually 5:33 PM workshop. We have 3 items on the agenda. So let's get going. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Just for the record, there are 4 counselors here today. Counselor Ross is not present. First up on the agenda is Age Friendly Sisters Country presentation. Dixie's here. Come on up. Hello, welcome.
Nice to be here. So I thought it might be nice before Christmas to present some sort of good news to the council.
What?
And yeah, and thank you all for letting us take a few minutes today. Give me the high sign if I start, rambling.
A little more in front of you.
Yeah, just go like this and
Wait, can you
get
hear
it kind of
me
in front of you.
now? Okay,
Thank you. It's more for the record and the rest of the people in the room. We can hear you.
yeah, okay. First of all, thank you for giving us a few minutes to come before you and sort of, first of all, thank you for 5 years of collaboration. That's what we're here to talk about today. A really positive collaboration between AFSC and the city. We, thanks to your support and to the endorsements of both the previous mayor, Mayor Ryan, and to you, Michael, for your endorsement of Age-Friendly Sisters Country. Sisters is an age-friendly community. We're part of the Age-Friendly Network that is sponsored by AARP, and it is a national network. We are one of 13 communities in Oregon that has that designation. So it is growing. They're trying very hard to make Oregon an age-friendly state. But Sisters is the only city still east of the Cascades that has that designation and is part of the network. And that's right, you do rock. So I think it's a good time to look back over the 5 years that we've worked together and sort of recap some of these accomplishments. In your packet, there was a review that I sent you about the various things that have happened over the last 5 years. We got our designation as an age-friendly city back in 2019. And that was when Mayor Ryan signed the proclamation that committed the city basically to trying to uphold the principles and the goals of age-friendly communities around the nation. That same year, our very first action team got started, which is STARS. I think you're all familiar with that. I have a little card there on the table for you about STARS. And we came to the city that very first time in 2019 to ask for a little startup money for the software that they need to operate. In 2020, as we all probably want to forget, that's when COVID hit big time. STARS was able to operate throughout the whole time of COVID, taking people to important emergency medical, not emergency medical, but I guess it kind of felt like an emergency at that time, getting them to the appointments that they needed to get to. So we got PPE from the city for that, which was very helpful. Let us, our drivers continue to be safe in their own cars. In 2021, STARS continued to grow with funds that were provided by the city for dispatch services. We did some outreach to our volunteers. We needed upgrades to the Spedsta service, and that was all provided as a result of the money that the city gave to AFSC. In 2022, STARS came to you through AFSC for money for Latino outreach. They translated everything on their website and all of their materials into Spanish so that we could reach that group of people. Also in that year, in 2022, AFSC worked closely with City Council and with Scott and the people who worked on the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. And I think that was a real important step in continuing the progress that AFSC and the city have made in becoming an age-friendly community. We've got several of those goals embedded into the comprehensive plan. There's actually language in the livability section about being an age-friendly city. And so as a roadmap for the future, it's important to remember that those things are enshrined in there, and it's a reference that we need to go back to as we move forward. In 2023, this year, we came to the city again and asked for additional services for STARS and also for some funding for AFSC's own needs. AFSC acts as an umbrella. We kind of have the 501c3 status that these action teams need in order to go out for funding. And we need funding too. And so the city realizes that and recognized it and has helped us with that over the years. Let's see. Just, I hope you'll all take a look at some point, not today, right now necessarily, but I also have this in your packet. And it kind of outlines the steps that the city is required to go through to stay as a member of the network. This outlines the various action domains of livability that AARP has identified. And that's what AFSC kind of uses as its model, as its structure for how we look for action teams. We hope that they fit into one of those domains so that we can support the age-friendly work. And this is the age-friendly program process. So we're kind of at the year, well, in the process, years 3 to 5 right now. We got a little extension on that beginning thing because COVID pushed everything back. But now we're to the point where we have to show them that we are implementing the things that we put in our action plan, which is what they use. The city comp plan is our city action plan for the age-friendly network. So it's an active thing, as you know, and I'm hoping that as time goes on, we'll be able to collaborate more. I wanted to mention STARS in particular as our action team that is thriving. Right now, STARS has 30 drivers, 9 dispatchers. They help 150 different people in our community. And this year alone, they gave 485 rides for a total of 19,000 miles of travel. That's a 30% increase over last year. So we can tell that this kind of program and the other ones that AFSC operates and works with are important for our community. Our family-friendly network, family-friendly, what's it called? Restroom team is installing baby changing tables in several businesses here in town. I think you were in on that conversation, Michael.
Little
when we
bit,
First
yeah.
had it. Well, it's
Have a customer in.
yes, and it's successful. It's operating. So we're happy about that. We're working with a couple of other action teams right now, kind of helping them get started. And our role in AFSC is not to just start them, but to advise them. A couple groups have come to us and realized that maybe that's not a good fit, but we can help them launch their own plan. So as our programs grow, we hope the collaboration with the city will continue to grow. And I lastly want to say that we were awarded in this year, AFSC, Age Friendly Sisters Country and STARS were awarded the 2023 Age Friendly Oregon Community Champion Award at the 2023 Summit in Monmouth. And so the state recognizes the work that we're doing here in collaboration with the city. And I'm going to just say that, Michael, at that conference, and there were several hundred people there, lots of dignitaries from around the state. And I was able to get up and accept this award on behalf of AFSC and the city. And I read a little excerpt from a letter that you had written in support of a grant that we were writing. So I'm just going to read it again and let you know what everybody heard. Since 2019, the City of Sisters has been a steadfast supporter of age-friendly Sisters Country and its STARS Action Team in their dedicated mission to provide transportation services for Sisters residents who are unable to drive. Our community is situated 20 miles away from the majority of healthcare facilities, making this volunteer rideshare initiative an indispensable lifeline to essential medical care for many of our residents. And I think that that really resonated with the people in that group. There were a lot of people thinking about very high-level ways to make the state an age-friendly state, but bringing it down to the local level and seeing what individuals can do in a small community inspires other communities. And I want to thank you all for being part of that inspiration, because this is where things get started. And your support has been extremely helpful over the years, and I hope there's 5 more years of it coming up.
At least, right? Well, thank you very much. I want to say a couple of things. One, the one thing that always resonated with me about AFSC and some of the conversations I had with you guys, there's one phrase that really stuck with me, and I repeat it a lot. And that is, if it's age friendly, it's everybody friendly. And you guys stuck that in me early in our conversations, and I'll never forget that, because it's true. If it's good for our aged community, then it's going to be good for everybody, and that means the community together is just better. We are not a retirement community, but we have a lot of retired people here. We're not just a business community. We have all ages in this town, and we have to be good for everybody, and so that's as best we can. And that's what we try to do. The second thing I want to thank you guys for is the STARS program is huge. It's overreaching. It's huge. I am part of the Band of Brothers. I'm the vice president of the Sisters chapter. And there are veterans out there that would not be able to get to their appointments without Rennie and the STARS program as a whole. And I get nothing but positive feedback from the STARS program. Matter of fact, I've never heard one wrong word about anything that's ever happened. So I think it's fantastic. I think it's hugely successful. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be a steadfast partner with you as long as I'm on this council. So thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions or comments they would like to add to that?
Just thank you for what you do.
I will say, our whole program started around a table at Subtle Tea over here 5 years ago, maybe 6 now. And it's kind of morphed into this. We have new board members. We have some emeritus board members here today. We have some new board members. I'm probably leaving the board, but it's an evolving process, and it's in good hands. And I have a lot of excitement about the things that are coming up.
Yeah, I recognize all of you. How about that? So I've seen you guys around and had
Yep.
conversations with all of you at some point. So thank you very much for presenting. Any last questions?
To ask,
Yeah.
how has the outreach to the Hispanic population?
Well,
Has
it did. It's hard. We have drivers who speak Spanish.
Mhm.
We don't get very many requests, but when there are requests, there are people who can take those rides. And a lot of it is reaching that population.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
you
it's-
don't just translate things or put it in the nugget and understand that they're gonna be able to find out about it.
Find that charm.
That's right.
To do, how to do that. Let us know. Because
And Mike has been really involved in that too. He's kind of gotten his foot in the door with the Spanish community. So I think there are lots of possibilities for more collaboration there.
thank you.
All right, we look forward to it.
Oh, I just had a couple comments too. Just kind of what Michael was saying. I mean, there is that old saying that, community can be judged on how it treats its children and its elderly. And, so this is definitely, something helping us in that direction, because anything that's good for kids and the elderly is good for everybody. So, good on you for working so hard on this. And I will just say that the other thing about the catch-22 of the success of STARS is that as a counselor and a policy person and a future person, what that tells me is that it's fantastic that you have this success, but it tells me that we do not have adequate public transportation, and we do not have adequate healthcare in our community.
Right.
And so those are, you know, obviously comp plan, there's a Sisters Country Vision. I mean, all these different things that have more or less addressed that, but that's just, every time I see your successful numbers, it just like doubles down to me on how critical it is that we keep pushing on those issues, you know, as our community grows incrementally. You know, these are services that I would really love to be providing here, or at least having more flexibility for people to get to where they need to go, so.
Well, people in, you know, over there, they just look up and down that highway and that's what they see. And we kind of have to keep making noise over here because that's how they remember we're here.
Right.
Great.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Good job.
Appreciate your enthusiasm too.
Well, it takes a village.
Right. All right. Next up is Republic Services presentation.
Hard act to follow.
That's why we brought him.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to share, right?
Well, welcome. I think Carrie's going to check the microphones and just make sure, mostly for the recording and for the people in the room to be sure and speak directly into the microphones.
I'll be speaking a little bit.
You're on screen. Okay. Who wants to speak first? Go ahead. Speak into the microphone, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Little closer. There you go.
Is it on?
Yep.
Yes, wonderful. Hi, good evening. My name's Erica Lindberg. I'm the General Manager for Republic Services. I have my two team members here, of Courtney Boss, who is our Municipal Manager, and Flores, who is our Finance Manager. We're going to be here presenting our mid-year presentation regarding service, the customer experience, and our financial update. So it's going to be high-level information just based off of the content and the data that we have. We did provide more detail level information in the addendum of the packet, so if there's any questions that come up, please feel free and let us know. Okay. So this particular slide just shows some spring takeaways that we had from our rate presentation in, I think it was April timeframe. We're going to be going into more detail or have a recap at the end of the presentation, so I'm not going to spend any time on this particular slide, but just wanted to present that this is what we're going to be going over later in the presentation. So I'm going to be moving on to our operational service statistics. So just as a note, this information is a divisional level information. So it does include the city of Sisters, it does include the city of Redmond and Deschutes County. Unfortunately, there's no way for us to specifically break down on a granular level our service statistics. So that's why it's at a divisional level. But looking at the information that we have, so what we've displayed here is services offered. And what that means is a driver is confirming that service has been completed at a location. We have customer reported misses, which is defined as customers reporting to Republic Services that their service has not been completed as scheduled. This data does include worry calls and ETAs for service. The other category is called carryover stops, which is where Republic Services is reporting stops have not been completed on the original scheduled date, and we're moving it to a future date. So of the services that we have provided this area, we've provided approximately 338,000 services in the month of September and October combined. Commercial, we've provided approximately 40,000 services. And of the services, residential services we've had 981 service impacts experienced by customers. And for our total commercial stops provided, we've had 1,361 stops that have been service impacts to customers. So one thing I want to note is we do recognize that, especially with the carryover stops, this data may seem low compared to what the community may be expressing they're experiencing relating to our service. This is a new metric for public services, so we're still working on how is this data captured in our system and understanding that piece, and then adjusting our behavior within the system to ensure that there's accurate reporting or capture of the data. So once we better understand that, and again, we're still working through that process, we'll be able to have a much more comprehensive picture of what the community is experiencing relating to service. Um, One thing that I do want to note is, our team, our operations team is incredibly dedicated to ensuring that we provide the best service for our customers. And that is our ultimate priority that we focus on. So any questions?
So this is division level data.
Division
so
level, yes.
Redmond and Sisters.
And Sisters.
Sisters Country.
And-
So,
yes.
okay. So there's not really any way to parse out that data to know
No, there's
how
not,
many misses
unfortunately.
happen in Sisters or even Sisters Country for that matter.
No, we don't.
Is there any
have-
way in the future of pulling that data apart?
I would say yes. I mean,
Okay.
we're always looking at enhancing the data and the reporting that we have around our data. And that's where we have this carryover step information,
Mhm.
just based off of conversation and looking at how can we better report the customer experience. That's where this metric came from. So I'd say yes to that.
Is it because of routing and the kind of how you're doing operations?
Right.
and Both, okay.
Yeah, it's just the routes in this division, when we run them, it's, on one route, we can pick up City of Redmond, we can pick up the City of Sisters, we can pick up Deschutes County. So being able to say, these number of stops on a route basis, it's just, right now for our systems is a little too granular for us to report on.
Yeah, I would just say it's hard, from the city's standpoint to,
Right,
671 could be all in Redmond. We don't know what the performance is
Right.
like within our specific.
yeah, and it's hard, I mean, seeing that, the City of Sisters didn't experience 338,000 pickups for residential. So, we recognize that. And again, that's a focus of ours to have more detailed level information, city specific or customer specific.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, that the other reason it's important for us to know is, if we are asked to raise rates, we want to know that in our town, the service has been superior, or if it hasn't. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Hi, my name's Courtney. I'm the municipal manager. That's my 2-year-old Liam. Thank you for being a place that allows me to bring my baby to work. Appreciate that. So these next 2 slides in the presentation really are about the CRC, which is our call center. They show the call center information for the division. So this does include both Redmond, Sisters, and the surrounding county areas. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about them, but just kind of a couple of high level points. So we're seeing some positive movement with regard to the CRC, which has been kind of a pain point for our municipal partners. Lots of feedback about customer experience calling into the CRC not being stellar. The thing that I will point out is that we are moving in the right direction and continue to close the gap between the number of calls that are being handled versus offered. So if you look at what happened in 2022 in particular, there was a huge spread between the number of calls that were going into the system and the ones that were actually being addressed by a call center agent. So that has improved pretty substantially in 2023. And it's something that we continue to work on and are in regular communication with our team at the CRC to ensure that that gap is basically eliminated, that people that call are getting the help that they need. The other thing I would say is that in Q1 to Q3, customers are reporting that their issues are being addressed on the first call. And we're going to talk a little bit more about first call resolution as part of the survey conversation that we're going to have later in this presentation. But it's really important that when people call, that they only have to call us once. We don't want them to have to call over and over and over again to get an issue resolved. And the last thing that I just want to point out, which is on this next slide here, is that most customers are not calling because they want to report a missed pickup or a specific service failure. The reason that they're calling is usually because they have a very basic question or because they want to pay a bill. I think that's important to point out because there's a lot of, I think people sometimes assume that everybody is just calling us to complain about missed pickups. That's not really what we're seeing. And so that's what this data highlights. The next slides, Erica's going to talk about this in a little bit more detail. So Republic Services uses two methods for collecting customer feedback. One of them is a post-call survey, and that's offered to anybody that calls into the CRC and connects with an agent. And that survey is really about what is the customer's experience on that call with those agents. The other thing we do is a random sample customer survey using something called NPS, which is a global metric for managing or measuring a customer's experience with a company. Republic uses this nationwide. We use it here locally, and we run it constantly year round. We're going to talk about what happened in 2023 with regard to those results from that survey. But in response to some of the regulator feedback that we got, particularly in this division, and especially in the city of Redmond, we actually ran something that we're calling a surge survey. So we dramatically increased the number of customers that received an opportunity to give us feedback. So I'm hoping that a number of you even had the opportunity to participate in that survey. We collected all of that information and are going through it now, but Erica's going to give kind of a high-level overview of what we saw in the Q1 to Q3 and then also in this surge survey.
Thank you, Courtney. Okay, so as Courtney said, this particular slide shows our 2023 results thus far. So the first graph, titled 2023 NPS, stands for Net Promoter Score. So the customers have an opportunity of rating us either a 9 to 10, which is the positive rating or promoter score, or they have an opportunity to rate their experience a 7, 8, which is a neutral rating score for us, or a negative score, which is 0 to 6. So of this particular data displayed, 200 customers have taken the survey thus far, and 56% of the customers are stating that their experience has been positive and they're rating us a 9 to 10. 17% of our customers are stating it's a neutral experience and they rate us between a 7 and 8. And 27% of the customers are saying, no, this is a poor experience, it's negative, so they're rating us between a 0 and 6. The other data displayed is we also ask other questions of our customers to better understand their experience. So the middle graph is always on time. So this is where the customers let us know, do we always pick up their schedule on time? So 66% of our customers said, yes, you always pick up our pickup on schedule. 30% of the customers said, usually you pick up on schedule, and 4% say sometimes you pick up on schedule. We haven't had customers rate us as a never. And then the
I'm
last,
having a little trouble understanding your statistics versus what I'm seeing in the bar graph. Cause you said like 66%.
I'm just doing it, I apologize.
Oh.
I didn't mean to I
Okay.
did a cumulative reporting
Okay.
of 2023
Okay.
thus far. This shows out or does a breakout over each of the quarters.
Okay.
So I
Thank you.
apologize. I didn't mean to make that
Sorry.
confusing. And then the last graph is first contact resolution. So this is where the customers say, or let us know, have they been able to resolve their issue with one contact for public services, or has it been multiple? So 54% of the customers say yes, it's taken only one call to resolve their issue, and 46% have said no, it's taken more than one call to resolve their issue.
May I ask a question, please?
Of course.
The always on time metric, on time is any time during the scheduled pickup day?
It's
Not a time of the morning or a specific
correct.
time of the
So
route?
yes, it's their perception that we always pick up on schedule. So that's the question that's asked of the customer. Do we always pick up on schedule?
Oh, so you don't so it's not limited to the day. Some people might be thinking, hey, they're usually here at 10 o'clock and
So yeah,
they're always here at 10 o'clock.
yeah, it's their
Okay,
perception of.
okay. So it's a perception score. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
It's helpful to know.
Any other questions? Okay, so as Courtney said, in response to a regulator ask, we did what we're calling a November surge survey. So we did dramatically increase the number of customers that we sent out surveys to. And to give a little context to that, from a entire business unit perspective, we normally send out around 4,000 surveys. So far, in the November timeframe, we've sent out about 14,000 surveys. Now, when we send out surveys, it doesn't mean all of our customers respond to us. It's usually about 7%. But again, this is surge. And so, so far in November, we've had 590 customers within this particular division. So sisters, customers included, that have taken the survey. Looking at the first bar graph, 58% of the customers have rated it a positive experience, so rating us a 9 to 10. 23% of the customers have rated it a neutral experience, so 7 to 8. And then 19% of the customers have rated it a negative experience, so rating us between a 0 and 6. And then looking at the second graph, always on time. Again, this is where the customers are saying, giving us the perception of, do we always pick up on time? So 65% of those customers are saying, yes, you always pick up on schedule. 29% are saying you usually pick up on schedule, and 6% are saying sometimes. And then we did have 2 customers that said, no, you never pick up on schedule. And then our first contact resolution. So this is where the customers let us know, does it take one contact to Republic Service to resolve their issue, or does it take multiple? So 48% of the customers are saying, yes, our issue is resolved after one contact. And then 52% of the customers are saying, no, is not resolved after one contact.
So a couple questions.
Yes.
So, on this first graph, the one that you were just, the previous, you've got in the AOT, you have always, usually, sometimes, and never. And the color for never and the color for
I know.
always is the same.
Yeah, it's on, when you look at it on the presentation, it's really, really close. But when we look at the actual details, no one has rated us with our normal methodology as never.
Blank space there that can never be.
Yeah, so why even have never?
It's just
Oh,
how when you
okay.
create the graphs.
And then on this other page, so you're saying the percentage of the calls. So the number on the far left on each of these is the number of people contacted?
That's a number of surveys and responses relating to that. And I'm just,
Oh.
again, giving a very high level
percentage.
cumulative percentage just to create more
Okay.
tangible context around it.
Thank you.
So just as a very quick summary, when we look at both our regular methodology to surveying our customers versus this surge data that we did, or surge survey, there's really not a lot of statistical variance between the 2 methodologies. So we're seeing very similar results when we look at both. Any other questions?
Was this survey mail?
No, it's electronic. So, and that's how we normally.
Like email or text or? Email,
Email.
phone, we run phone.
Right.
On the app, on your app.
No, it's sent through, it's a third-party company that
Okay.
administers all the surveys. So they send out a link or an email or phone call to our customers, and that's how we, that's actually, according to.
Yeah, so that's one of the takeaways from this process. We got a fair amount of bad data back, meaning we don't have a good email, we don't have a good phone number for the customer. So I have a list of all of those that were not deliverable or not contactable. And one of the projects that I have for January is to start to figure out how to reach those customers and ensure that we have good contact information for them. So I haven't yet started that process, and I'm struggling a little bit with how I'm going to do that, but it is on my list.
So when you do survey them, you at the point of putting in the data of who to contact, you do know what town they're in. And so this information could be broken down to by city, sort of.
I would have to ask if it's possible. Based off of our view, I don't have access to being able to break it down on a city level. Again, this is on a division-based level for us that includes Sisters, Redmond, and Deschutes County for us.
Can you break it down by zip code? I mean, that's not perfect, but at least it narrows down
Yeah.
Sisters Country.
Again, I mean,
9.
that's just something I would have to look into and ask, our corporate office who, manages this data or these programs. If there's a report that they can run on our behalf that shows us this type of information. Any other questions? Okay, next is going to be Urbany, and she's going to give, our financial outlook and update.
Yeah, I was going to do a very high view. I'm Urbany Flores, the finance manager. Just go over some of the cost savings and cost impacts that we've been seeing this year. One of the big ones, cost savings is fuel costs. We saw lower fuel costs in Q3 and Q4 than we were seeing in Q1, but we are seeing the fuel costs come back up in Q4. So that's what we're looking at right now. Recycled commodities, we've actually seen a decline on the commingle in Q2 and Q3 compared to Q1. We're averaging 140 a ton compared to 180, what we were seeing in the beginning of the year. And cardboard has been wavering between a cost and rebate all year. But we're averaging right now about $20 per ton rebate back. So that's helping us on those costs. The other cost impacting item that it's mainly our biggest one is things that happened in 2023, which was the disposal increase as of July 1st, which the county implemented. And it was a 27% increase from $55 to $70 a ton. So our 2023 financials are only reflecting half a year of those disposal costs. So since that was effective, then every month, we're incurring those additional costs. It's eroding our margin. So even though we are not projecting right now, we're projecting to be within allowable margin for 2023 before taxes. Well, we're not asking for a mid-year price increase. We will be coming back for the annual and most likely asking for a price increase for the July. Primarily a big driver is the county's already disclosed that they're raising the disposal price again. And I don't know the exact amount, but it's, from what I understand, it's going to be another significant increase. So that's going to be the big driver. So you guys have any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Okay,
Okay.
no?
Okay, this next slide we wanted to include as informational. This is something that came up during our spring 2023 conversations. This is one of the biggest cost drivers for us, is commodities and commodity pricing. So we wanted to include this information for you just to show the trends that we've been experiencing in 2023, especially compared to 2022. And as we, continue to progress in this year, and of course, when we come back in the spring of 2024, we'll continue to provide this type of update and transparency in the commodity cost. So, but I can answer any questions that anybody may have.
So our City of Sisters doesn't currently have glass. in
Correct.
The recycling.
This is just showing, this is relating to cardboard and commingled, so it does not include glass.
So it's the same through all of the whole region.
Correct. Everywhere where we service, whether it's Sisters, Redmond, Bend, Deschutes County, Prineville.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
not working. Okay. Technology.
This, you may have already gotten a report from Mr. Wheeler, I'm not sure, but we do a fall and spring cleanup here with the City of Sisters for the fall cleanup. We did 525 cubic yards of additional yard debris, 3.3 tons of garbage, and collected 26 appliances curbside. We did set the date for the spring cleanup, and I'll work with Carrie to make sure that that gets out and promoted to the community. We have that set for May 6th, the week of May 6th. Happy birthday. I'll make a note on the route sheet to come by. Yeah. The other kind of updates that we wanted to give. So as you know, we have an operating agreement with you to support the operations of the Sisters Recycling Center. We haul the material out of there, obviously. We also have somebody that goes by to clean up and help support ensuring that that facility is maintained. I think that has been a struggle for the community. I know that we've gotten some feedback about that, and it's been something that I've been struggling with since I started here about a year ago. The good news is that we recently did change the container types that we have there, which on the back end for us improves our ability to service the facility. So that'll help. I did order new signage for the facility. And at some point, I think we'd like to come in and talk with you guys about a possible service expansion so that some of the materials that are collected there would just be collected curbside. That really has to do with the county, the Sisters County country area, and ensuring that those customers have that resource. So more on that to come.
Don't worry.
More on that to come, and just wanted to make sure that you knew that it is very much still on our radar and something that we're focused on. Any questions about that? Okay. I'm just going to wrap up and say, you know, the purpose of this presentation is really about accountability and holding ourselves accountable to some of the things that we've committed to our partners. And we want to demonstrate to you that we hear you when we come in for rate increases and asks, and in our conversations over the course of the months. When you raise issues with us, we try our best to tackle and resolve those issues because we want to be the kinds of partners that you're proud to have, and we want our customer base to be excited to do business with us. So I've included on this last slide the list of things that we talked about either with you or with staff, and where we are kind of in the process of implementing changes and, you know, resolving some of the concerns. There's going to be a lot of really cool things happening in trash over the course of the next year, particularly with the new landfill, but with the rollout of the Recycling Modernization Act. And that landscape is going to change. And so as the hauler, as your provider, we have a responsibility to be very transparent and clear with you, honest with you about where things are, and demonstrate that we hold ourselves accountable, but also give you the opportunity to do that with us as well. So that was the purpose of tonight's presentation. And again, thanks for letting me bring little guy. And if there's any questions, let us know.
Did you have a, go ahead, Susan.
Okay, so I'm beating this same drum here. On this additional information about numbers, I mean, it just seems to me telling us how many Sisters customers you interface with should not be too hard to break out here, because you're just talking customers. So I think we'd like to have those delineated. And then I got concerned when I was reading this additional information, service action items, communication engagement. And on this one over here in the third column, it says investments in cameras with AI. And what I would like to know is, we're not going to be doing face recognition over at some dump, right? I mean, no. Okay. So what is the AI?
Relating to our drivers servicing containers. So we take pictures of containers is really.
Okay.
Or another part of that process is to ensure that we don't have contamination in our recycling stream. So we take pictures when it's actually going into our truck of if there's any contamination.
Okay.
So that's what we take pictures of.
And let me just say, it's actually very cool. And at some point, I would love to get a truck out here and show you how it works and just how that kind of operationalizes. Because all of that new technology is going to enable us to ultimately make, to win on the kind of diversion side and change behavior and help people understand why we need to do it the right way. So it sounds, when I first heard that we were doing it, I was like, oh, that's a little creepy. But it's actually super, super cool. So,
Okay.
I think a good educational.
Yeah.
Or when we make some transitions to the new way of doing things.
yeah.
And my last little bit, so on this particular graph, you're comparing one aspect, the responses, whether they deliver always, usually, or sometimes on time. And then you're comparing year to year. But the graph has different values at the top here. And so it's really hard to see that, in fact, there hasn't been much improvement. So I would like to suggest that the graphs always, when they're doing this kind of comparison, always have the same rate or range on the top side, on the side. I'm done.
I think that's great feedback. So we'll make sure to kind of modify the way we do the presentations. And just to kind of recap, so our takeaways from this conversation are to go back and look at the data, talk with our team and see if there's a way to get sister-specific updates to everything that we've presented tonight. And then just plan on for the spring presentation, we'll be back, making sure that that's sister-specific as well. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think that that's just kind of, it just kind of makes sense. We don't have a contract with Redmond together for your services. So
Yeah.
if you can break them out, that'd be appreciated for sure. Any other questions or comments?
I had two questions. One is just with the Recycling Modernization Act, I was seeing that at some point, the producers are going to be, funneling money, and it's kind of, there's municipal money, and I was reading that that can either go to the municipality or possibly the provider that they're contracted with. So but I know it's kind of work in progress. So do you have any information on that?
Not any updates relating to funding. I think that still is a work in progress. I know they're still updating policies and just kind of rules around that. So we don't have any updates on that yet.
Insider.
No insider information. I apologize.
Okay. And then my second is that in your, economics of your business, obviously, at some point you need people to create a waste stream, whatever that is, right? To have a business and make money. But then at some point, there's like a tipping point, no pun intended, that it helps for people to be reducing that amount of waste they're producing, right? Because there's that, more equipment and more miles driven and all that kind of stuff. So, is that correct? Did you say, or are you just like, no, people keep throwing stuff out?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just trying to think of like a future, maybe creative solutions to some of that stuff, but
I think what we're starting to see is communities and people being more conscientious of recycling. So you may get, less trash or garbage tonnage, but more recycling. I think the reality is, as populations continue to grow, people produce waste, whether it's garbage or recycling. So we continue to see year over year an increase in the material that we're picking up from communities, but you're also starting to see the shift of, well, it may not be on the trash side, it's more focus on the recycling side.
Well, I thought it was interesting in here somewhere in here it showed that, per customer, the commercial entities were producing vastly more tonnage of waste or recycling than residential. So I'm just trying to think of, big picture as a community, ways we might be able to, reduce the amount of waste or recycling, getting more stuff into the reuse category or, even eliminating it from getting into our community in the first
Yeah.
place. So,
I think RMA is going to help with that. It's going to provide pretty clear direction and focus and, support to the communities on how that can happen.
okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else? Go ahead.
On the recycling center, is it possible for the next update to get sort of the data about how much is collected there
Sure.
and hauled out and
Yeah.
different type of materials and stuff? And then back to the RMA, and kind of projecting forward of what ratepayers can kind of expect either coming out of that, because I think some of the costs are going to be recovered through the actual,
Right.
charge to the people producing the materials that are hard to recycle and all that. But additional services or, things that may come onto a bill. And then with the landfill too, on the same lines, are you in conversation with like what tipping fees may look like, going for the next 5 years, disposal fees as the landfill comes online and.
I mean, that'll definitely come from Deschutes County of what they project their fees are going to be because, they have to look at it from a perspective of they're going to have to close the landfill. So there's going to be additional costs associated with doing so. And I think they're starting to work through what does that look like? What does post-closure look like? And what are costs associated with that and coming up with plans and then once they have those plans in place, then they'll determine how much they need to increase their gate rates.
Fuel costs increase depending on where it's located.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a consideration of, where's the waste centroid located compared to where is your end state or the landfill located and how does that impact your operational costs? There's a variety of costs that are that a landfill impacts. So they're taking not just the operational costs, but you've got one of the biggest drivers of a landfill cost is excavation. So they're looking at the potential site and location and what's the excavation costs associated with.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot to it. It can be very complex.
Thank you.
Right. And the steps to get there.
Yeah.
Super
Yes,
complex.
there,
right?
we're.
When's
I'm
the,
not-
when's the last time it happened, right?
Yeah, long time.
Yeah. All right, anything else? Thank you so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. We're looking forward to seeing you again in the spring and,
Or
Um,
maybe not.
well,
We'll still give an update.
Yeah.
I meant May 6th. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We appreciate, and the spring and fall cleanups are super important and we know they're popular and they're not standard in all communities. So we appreciate that partnership with you guys.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
All right. One more item on the agenda. You got 5 minutes? No.
Do it in 5, yeah.
No, you know what? Let's take the time it needs and not rush it. The third thing on the agenda for this workshop is the 2023-24 City Council Goals Mid-Year Update and Goal Setting Process. City Manager Wheeler.
Carrie, can you promote me to a panelist? Sorry. Yeah, so we're heading into goal setting. And typically the council sets goals for a fiscal year. And so your goals right now, we're in the middle of our fiscal year 23-24 goals. And what that means is we're only 6 months through. And we have 6 months to go on these particular set of goals. But typically when the council has conversations about goals, there's an understanding that, there's a time that takes to implement some of these bigger projects and some of these efforts are ongoing. But since we're halfway through and since we're going into the period of time here, the time of year where we sit down with council and we review goals and we talk about the future on what we want to look at the next fiscal year, we thought it'd be helpful to kind of do a status update, start getting the council in the mode of setting goals and understanding where we're at with some of these things and what might be the next milestones or next actions or objectives within these goal categories. We will quickly go through this. I did, upon popular request, add some green, yellow, and red lights. So we can go through this a little faster.
I don't know who told you that, but they're very smart.
They are very smart. Instead of having to go through all the detail, I'll just highlight things as we go through and kind of point out where we're at with each of these. Just to remind you, we have a good amount of categories here. but it helps us organize our goals. I think it's kind of corresponds with what the city does in terms of our main services, but also, it's a reflection of what the council's priorities are. Typically, these overarching goal categories are set every other year. And that might be something council wants to talk about, whether we want to maintain these goal categories. We want to think about a little bit different in how we categorize goals. Do we want to have goal statements, for example? Or do we want to kind of keep intact this sort of format where we have categories and then action items or objectives underneath each of these categories? I think in total, there's about 30 different actions within this. So, pretty full slate, pretty ambitious slate. But the good news is we're making progress on almost all these goals. Some of them are ongoing because they talk about partnerships or leveraging existing resources and things like that. So if it comes through, some of these are more yellow-green, right? We've accomplished some things but they're ongoing and we're continuing to work on it.
You're bucking the system. I like it.
I'd add my own touch on it.
It's not yellow, it's not green, it's in between.
In between.
Staining green.
It means we're making progress but it's an ongoing effort. And a couple of these we have, made some great progress or accomplished. We've updated the UGB sufficiency report, for example, and the council just last meeting made the decision to move forward with that expansion effort to explore that. So some things that we can kind of say, hey, we accomplished and now we're going on to the next steps. And I'm sure that's going to be a conversation for the next goal setting. We're making progress and plan to be complete in terms of the dark sky, for example, that just went to the planning commission. So those code amendments will be coming to council. You've had a couple work sessions on that. And of course, the short-term rentals kind of at the same stage too, where that'll be coming back to council within the next 6 months. In fact, in the next month or two. So progress being made on a lot of these more housing and livability topics. That's the biggest category, actually. So then we have under wildfire, again, progress being made on a couple things even recently with the building hardening codes and the defensible spaces, kicking that off and getting the council's input on what we should prioritize and how we go about those updates to our code. So we're going to be working on that and plan to have that completed by the end of the year. We've organized a Sisters Country wildfire mitigation group that meets every month to kind of facilitate information, what kind of funding's out there. There's been a lot of work on city facilities, that we've accomplished in a couple different phases. So some great progress on this goal, and I'm sure that's going to be again another topic because it's a topic for 6 months out of the year is on everybody's mind here in Sisters.
I hate to say it, but it's a hot topic.
Thank you. I wasn't going to say it, but economic development. This is one of those categories where we have a goal that we haven't started on. There is some existing work that's been done on, for the lack of a better name, the West Side Park or the Northwest Park. There with the Woodlands development, there was a dedication of property there. That is something that needs to be put in the work plan, is how we accomplish this goal of looking at project concepts, getting community involvement. A big hurdle there is funding. In the Parks Master Plan, I think, the big plan calls for, amenities there like ice skating rink or a pavilion, which can be pretty costly. So we need to work with the community and the council and coming up, what does, maybe an interim project look like? What is long-term plan for that? And how do you fund it? Is there a partnership with the recreation district? Fundraising through grants and private donations and things like that. But that property exists, that development's happening, and there's an opportunity there. But just haven't been able to move on that quite yet. But otherwise, Explore Sisters is off and running. We have liaisons on staff and on council. That's a part of that effort and on that board. We're looking forward to seeing things come out of that first year here in the next couple months when they start with their campaigning and website and marketing and things. Essential infrastructure. There's going to be a lot more coming on this. There's a lot underway in terms of our CIP for our water and wastewater capital improvements, the funding strategies, looking at loans and grants and working with Business Oregon. We have rate studies in the works right now. We just got our first draft of the SDCs and those updates. We've completed the design for the Barclay Drive when we're talking about transportation projects. Next up, we'll be looking at the first phase of those improvements, and then putting a funding plan in place in our transportation CIP for the next, over the next 5 years of how to accomplish the next phases of that project. And then a green light there on our wastewater system, getting the generators going, and the emergency preparedness for our critical facilities. So it's always good to see some green already in the first 6 months. Good governance. This is a good topic, right? You often don't see this in council goals, but I think it's worthy to have a category, because that's, everything else comes from having a strong, well-run government. And so I think it's important to continue to have an eye upon how we run this place, how do we accomplish all these other goals, right? And part of that is communications and the community outreach plan. And I think we've been working together on how do we increase the community engagement, especially as we look at things like the UGB coming up. That's going to be a huge part of that project. With goal setting, we've talked about having this roundtable, which I'll touch on in a minute. And then things like just pushing out information, right? We have the newsletter. We're in the process of hiring somebody for the deputy recorder position that would also help with communication and Facebook and social media and more public engagement. We continue to stay involved with the VIT. They're meeting quarterly, I think. One's coming up soon. And with the new director at C4C, I know we're starting to pivot to more of a focus on updating the vision, or looking at least at the vision strategies and updating that, and making sure that all the agencies and participants that are involved with that are continuing to keep their eye on the ball and how we implement that vision. And I already mentioned the utility rates and SDCs that are coming up. They'll be in your schedule soon for considering updates to those rates and fees. Environmental sustainability, the big one, the city's sustainability plan that was adopted by this council 3 or 4 months ago, but we're off and running on implementing parts of that plan. The East Portal Mobility Hub, the design is underway. So we have that concept plan, but now we're starting the design on the first phase. And then we have mapped, existing and future electric vehicle charging facilities, and received that grant to incorporate charging infrastructure at the East Portal, which is pretty exciting. So, good progress being made in this front.
At what point are we going to stop calling it East Portal?
That's in the work plan. It's on my list of
Okay.
a naming contest or a process to come up with a name for that.
Now let's move that up.
Part of it, is right now, because the funding is sort of tied to it being a mobility hub and everything, that's kind of how the name stuck there for now, but it is on the work plan.
I still like Bargain Park.
Boy.
That's phase 2 or 3 is the bark part of the park. And then finally, urban renewal, we have some work to do here. We have slated for the urban renewal board to meet in January to kind of go back over the project list and the maximum indebtedness and what we have on the plan, talk about the workforce housing grant program and establishing that. So that's coming up in January. One of the things that we have sort of stalled or haven't started yet is on the Adams Avenue Streetscape project, because that's linked in with what we have projected for available funding in the URA. And so we do have to kind of think through how we prioritize that versus other projects or other ideas in the urban renewal plan, because I think the cost estimate for that project came in higher than what we had initially anticipated and had as part of the list for the maximum indebtedness. So that's something to kind of have to work through and talk through with the board. West Side Pump Station is underway, at least the process of bringing on the consultant and having that design started. And that's, the funding is actually split between the RA and wastewater. And then coming up, in the council meeting, we'll be talking about or having the IGA for the US 20 locust roundabout. And a big part of the city's funding on that is going to be from urban renewal. And I think the next thing sort of on the list for the goals as part of that is the art and landscaping. That comes in sort of on the more of the tail end of the project. So it's not as immediate as getting the funding for the construction, but Carrie and others will be working on that process to getting some, prominent art in that roundabout, which will be funded through urban renewal. So. All right, process. I think council, you're aware of this. This is also for the community, understand kind of what we're looking at in terms of getting community involvement and then having the opportunity for council to talk about the next steps on some of these goals, which new goals should be included, what we've heard from the community as part of this process. But to start, we'll be doing an online survey, just a simple question or two for the community to provide input, open, not just a blank, sort of, well, what do you want the council to focus on in 2024? And so allow people to kind of participate that way so we can get that community input. And then we'll have a community roundtable either here at City Hall or another location that can sort of facilitate having multiple tables in a very sort of informal setting. Coffee, tea, cookies, come sit down with the city councilor and staff and share your ideas and what you'd like the city to focus on or continue to work on over the next year or two. So we'll be inviting the community to that, kind of pick the late afternoon, the sweet spot, it seems like, for this community to come out. And again, informal, so if they can't make it till 6 o'clock, that's completely fine. And then the goal setting meeting in early February. And we call it a retreat, but it could be sort of a, just council goal setting session. And we'll set an agenda for that. A chance for some team building, chance for council to talk about goals, talk with staff, get ideas from the public, from staff, from counselors.
In a secret location.
In a secret, has to be within the city limits.
Okay.
So we cannot, it is a public meeting. It will be advertised. And then once we get those ideas, staff will work on putting them in, down on paper, drafting them up. And then we get into the fun wordsmithing that we involve the council on, making sure that these reflect what you talked about and the goals that you want us to work on. And then you will formally adopt those because those then are guiding light for both the budget and making sure that we incorporate those goals into the next budget, but it sets the work plan for the next fiscal year too. So that's what's on tap. Happy to answer any questions.
Is everybody available for the 22nd? Because feel like I want to be out of town that day, just in case. No, I'm just kidding.
28th?
The 22nd,
Oh,
community roundtable.
oh,
I think we've sent out calendar invites.
I think you have.
So if you've accepted it, then
Yeah.
it's
Then
too
you
late.
gotta come. Yeah.
Locked in.
Gotta
That's
come.
it.
I hope
We're
the
back
team
in-
building, I hope the team building includes like a ropes course or something, or
Tug of war.
trust falls, something,
Yeah,
Trust falls, so we can do.
right.
setting the bar.
Yeah, yeah.
Better
I
be
get
good.
Jennifer on my team.
so I do have a question. I've been with one goal setting event, that we did. I've participated in one goal setting.
Right.
And I was wondering if this time we might want to, once we have our focus areas or categories, and we've, delineated goals, if we would like to add a prioritization, because it might help as far as when we, knowing that priorities can change, but it's kind of a good way of helping with the financials, when they start looking at that, which ones we can or cannot do based on finances. Might be worth our time.
Maybe. I think that the one thing we want to definitely try to do is not set so many goals that we can't hit them all. I think
Yeah.
the definite thing is that we try and have a group of goals as a plate that's not overfull, that we know that staff can accomplish. So, but I see your point. Sometimes things get busy with things that weren't on our goal, in our goals at all, that we're being a little reactionary for. And I would say that some of the conversations we had this year were certainly part of that, that take away time and effort and money from other things. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, So I mean, I would invite staff when we go through the goal setting process to be open and honest about capacity and workloads and what we can accomplish. I think where it is helpful, so some of the stuff is prioritized, right? We'll work on it, and it will sort of depend on sort of the ebb and flow of work and putting out RFPs.
funding.
Consultants and things like that. And yeah, when the funding is sort of slated. And then some of it is actually prioritization can help us. In one particular area would be like with planning and land use, right? So here's an easy example. On your goals are STRs and dark skies. And, you know, we also did the tree code amendments, and, you know, this is currently going on, but, you know, in that area, when we have, you know, limited staff and it takes time to kind of process through development code updates or something, that prioritizing those, like we want to make sure we do dark sky first or short-term rentals first, you know, check that off the box and then move on to the next one. Typically, I mean, the feedback comes back, you know, part of the dialogue is setting goals. Oh, I think we could do that at the same time. We have the staff capacity, or no, it'd be helpful to have these prioritized. So which ones you want us to take on first? That could be helpful. And then the quality of life stuff too, that can kind of be tougher because you're going through maybe more public involvement, you know, like the park thing, for example, urban renewal. Those things can kind of take time to work through. And so if, you know, prioritizing that, we really want to build a park, and that's the first thing you want to do before we would consider you know, a gateway art piece or something like that. That could be helpful for us to kind of schedule our work throughout the year. That makes sense.
Gateway art piece. I like that. Okay. You got any questions?
No,
Anything? Okay. We good?
good to go.
Great.
you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to adjourn this workshop for now. We're going to start our regular city council meeting about 20 minutes late. Late. I call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Roll call.
Mayor Preden,
I'm here.
Council President Blum,
Here.
Councilor Letts,
Here.
Councilor Cobb,
Here.
Councilor Ross.
She knows who we are. That's great. Thanks, Gary. Can entertain a motion on the approval of the agenda.
Move approval of the agenda. I second.
We have an emotion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll give that a 4-0. Visitor communication. Do we have any?
I do have Michael, but he is not in the room.
He's
I just saw him.
walking this way.
Michael, you coming?
Right.
All right. Only one on the list so far?
Ready to go?
Okay.
Apologize for that. I may have to stop because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to read this because I haven't been able to read it over. There's things I want to still read you, but then things keep happening and I have to reply to them.
Welcome.
So by the way, I mentioned a psychotherapist I knew, and that person actually knew that I never needed, counseling. I counseled myself. She was just company. Only because of noticing in a photograph, one of the presenters, at a local discussion on loneliness, that I dare to believe a pastor would be internally ordered from inside his gut, his real conscience, or from inside some real marrow to do what blatantly and profoundly obviously should be done, which you are already aware of. If not for all the other ethical reasons also, as explained to you, and then him, for my limited ability and capacity to associate with a few people, including one I met recently, who is also houseless. When not doing so can add to their loneliness. And by the way, Christianity, when bringing comfort to some, is alienating, despairing, and lonely to others, or adds to loneliness to others. That's an obvious. The old school psychotherapist I knew this. A woman who worked at J Bar J for about 20 years definitely knew and experienced this amongst many, many others through the years. Not because they had an unbalanced or unspiritual problem. When I first spoke shortly I first spoke shortly to a management type of person at their church while setting up an appointment date, giving me the friendly impression as being very understanding to both my interfaith outlook and my being beyond the comforting stuck in the old security box, which is infantilistic satanizing, a word used as an adjective for the same attentive purpose as people did long before I was born. A week later, I told the pastor what was needed, and he came across openly and understanding of my principles and the necessity of what I spoke of. Then after a few more weeks of wait, what I now recognize as the standard shuffle over to someone else, I saw the kingpin director of the homeless situation in the Sisters region, who also came across as very understanding. Then after a short time informed me of 2 ill family members and has a limited amount of time, can't do anything, and I could only passively withdraw. Though at the beginning of the short discussion, he did say he spends 40 hours a week with the homeless people. It took till the next morning for it all to soak in. Again. I will now say that a cold weather shelter, which is a year-round resource center, will in all good probabilities operate as others in Central Oregon, in Portland, and Eugene at the Whitebird. I've been to these places seeking contact and been to meetings on homelessness, where people often have espoused lip service on the necessity of doing more than the common when dealing with the homelessness. Quote, "The reason why some are homeless may not be what you expect. So ask, you may be able to help them," unquote. To keep it short, for the matter of time, speaking to several of them immediately after hearing this, or this sort of statement, and telling them how long I've been looking, only reminds me again and again and again, I'll stop there. Because the way I was born, etc., I would not speak against a shelter, though the site on Barkley is wrong without a sidewalk. Though those who do put in effort in not allowing one anywhere is comprehensible to me, even if they also are as much of the problem. For this type of society continues to benefit the growing populace of people who become less appreciative beneath the hype in themselves and in others who have a real blue collar work ethic, which I grew up doing, and having something called a real conscience. Today, it's words, creativity, talent, intellect, knowledge, and friendliness, good behaviors, philanthropy, handouts, and superficial love, and goodwill toward all, and to all a good night, which all can add to loneliness for a few in a sociopathic society. To finish, for doing what I was born to do, most recently Learn from your local lieutenant deputy. I was blacklisted from what is their hallowed grounds. I was able the best I could. I did the best I could to explain the full story to Lieutenant Davis. Just the facts, how it played out without what some Christians on a documentary I just saw, who are trying to get Christians to expand out of their spoiled niches, calling those Christians who have, quote, easily offended spirits, unquote, and truly, quote, need to learn to engage, unquote. And when trying to explain the situation to the lieutenant, that morning, I was extremely exhausted, having 1 hour previously finished scribbling a letter note to Lala Dabari on her birthday. As I already said last year, I will say again now, if Jesus, who has been gone 2,000 years, ever had a problem with me putting all my heart towards another and not him, he can go to Hades. And actually, I think he would genuinely understand. Though who knows, maybe that's just my schizophrenia. I am waiting.
Thank you, Michael. Merry Christmas to you. No others, visitors, consent agenda, we could probably entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's 4. All right, on to council business. Ordinance 535. An ordinance of City of Sisters adopting public contracting rules and procedures and replacing and superseding City of Sisters ordinance number 493. I need to open the public hearing first. Done. On to staff comments and report. Are there any revisions from the posted ordinance? Do I ask that now or?
Yeah, there are none. And I'm coming down here. My mic does not pick up when I'm recording, so
Okay.
very well.
Sounds good.
So we sent this ordinance out to council 7 days ago for your review. And it is the update of the public contracting rules and procedures. Last time that we looked at these was about 5 years ago. And in that time, many changes have happened at the state level. We wanted to make sure were captured in our code. I sent out the staff report that kind of reviewed the larger changes in Exhibit A, B, and C. And Dustin Hawkins, our city attorney, one of our city attorneys is here. And I would love for him to be able to answer any of those questions that you might have. He's a little more versed in that. And then I did, one of the things that we wanted to bring to your attention outside of the changes in some of those numbers is what directors and the city manager can approve has not changed. So the city manager can approve anything under 25,000, directors, anything under $10,000. But all of those numbers or those contracts they would have approved would have been built into the budget. So you would have approved them through the budgetary process. So leave it for the next steps and then questions if we have them, or if there's any staff report pieces that
All right.
you would like to add.
All right.
Okay.
The first thing to do is the report. So I'm going to ask if there's any public comment. And no. Okay.
Let me ask very quickly. Is there anybody online that would like to make public comment? Please raise your hand and I'll unmute you. I'm seeing none.
All right. I'm going to close the public portion of the hearing. Thank you. Now it's time for questions or council deliberations. And this is the time, if you have anything in particular on some verbiage or questions about numbers, the city attorney's here, or you can ask staff. Susan, do you have anything?
I do not.
Okay. Do you have
I really
anything?
don't either.
Okay.
I think we should come up with something, though. I mean, he's traveled all this way.
Right.
Is there, this is the 5 years since we've looked at this, and it is in response to some changes at the state level. And then that's just, we're incorporating those updates into our local.
Right, so,
Is that what I'm seeing here?
right, so predominantly the changes are the thresholds for small and intermediate procurements for goods and services and public improvement contracts have increased such that you can use some more efficient contracting methods when the contract price thresholds are below certain amounts for the goods and services or public improvement contracts.
And that was done, I assume, because the cost of everything has increased to the point where even a minor project can put you over the limits.
But I don't think there's any coincidence this happened right in the heat of inflation.
Yeah, we're all aware.
That's very diplomatic. Are you sure you don't want to be an elected official at some point?
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate.
I have one question, not necessarily anything that needs to be changed, but I was just curious about the purchase of used personal property and the threshold going from $150,000 to $250,000. It just, on the surface, it seems like that, well, that's still a big chunk of change, to not have to go, through council. So I was just kind of curious what the reasoning for that is.
So initially, when the contracting code was adopted, those numbers paralleled what we had for the thresholds for small and intermediate procurements. So in order to maintain consistency, that's really why that was done. Doesn't necessarily need to have been increased, but just to maintain consistency with the increase in the threshold throughout the code, that's why that was lifted to that limit.
But council still wouldn't need to approve anything over the $25,000 limit, or, even a purchase contract.
Right, so these are exemptions from what otherwise would be more, I guess, time-consuming public contracting efforts.
It still would go through.
Okay, okay, got it, thank you. Yeah, it just seemed like a really big number to,
Put in our hands even.
yeah.
But it's, instead of going out and doing an invitation to bid or a formal process,
Okay.
the intermediate processes, soliciting quotes, and
Got it, all right, thank you.
So I did have a conversation with Jordan about the one section on the awards and those two pieces. And I just wondered to him about whether there would be a process, or if this council would consider a process where by we would, and he helped counsel me on my words here, but where we would have a value policy and seek to answer procurements or seek to have procurements with the local community before or giving them some kind of preference. And I'm not sure if there's a legal problem with that, or it could just be a policy statement, but I'm just hoping that we can focus on, what we have available to us already.
Well, generally, it really depends on the level of the contract price. So in some instances, you're allowed to direct contract, and what that means is you don't need to solicit at all. There's various ways that you solicit a public service contract, and it depends on whether it's a good or service or a public improvement. For example, with architects and engineers, you can directly contract with an architect and engineer for $100,000 or less. And there really isn't any rule on who you have to choose in that instance, other than every city is supposed to have a list of qualified consultants, and those can be local businesses. They often are. You can use another public contracting agency's list of consultants, or you can use all the consultants that you can reasonably identify under the circumstances. So in a direct procurement situation, since you're allowed to directly contract in that circumstance, I suppose you could give a local preference, but by and large, anytime you're advertising an RFP, for example, or request for proposals, you're basing that off qualifications, not off the locality. In some circumstances, when you're evaluating a proposal, the proposer's ability to be responsive in the local community is a potential qualification you could consider. So in that regard, under some public contracts, you could, as a factor in a way, incorporate a preference for a local business. But in a lot of circumstances, it needs to be opened up to anyone that would want to bid or submit a proposal, and they need to be evaluated along the lines of criteria that's established in the solicitation document.
Okay, and that would also, to me, include in the execution of letting people know about the RFPs, that we make a special effort in making sure that locally that's known in our town. And I'm not sure how we do that, and maybe we already do that. But I'm-
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of, invitations to bid and requests for proposals that are above what's called an intermediate procurement, you do have to advertise those, and those would be advertised in the newspaper of general circulation
Okay.
in the locality, so that would definitely be published locally.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Any deliberations or anything?
I have one thing from Counselor Ross in the conversation I had with him yesterday.
Great.
So he read this very thoroughly. Credit to Counselor. On page, I believe it's Exhibit B, page 11, with disposal of surplus property. The counselor requested consideration under subsection C with restriction on sale to city employees. It used to be that city employees were not eligible for surplus property. That rule has changed now that employees can are no longer restricted, but they have to wait a period of 3 days after the surplus property has been advertised to the general public. And he felt that perhaps 7 days would be a better period of time to allow others to offer on the surplus property before employees had that opportunity. And really, I think it's just a practical, like, if it's in a local paper or something, how, are people going to see it within 3 days before a city employee knows about surplus property? That being said, we don't have a lot of surplus property, and property could mean, not just property, but any surplus item that we deem surplus and declared. But it's a small adjustment. I think if the council was agreeable to that, I don't see anything wrong with
When
it.
there is surplus property and we put out a notice, would the notice not say we will stop taking bids on a certain date? And then whoever's the highest bidder on that date, we would give it to? Or is it the very first person that responds, we take it? How does that work?
How does that work?
Oh, how does that work?
Come
A
on.
lot of it goes to the state. I mean, auction and things like that. Have we ran our own surplus property?
We take it to the state auction and we put a definitive date and definitive minimum, and the high bid wins it.
So if we have a submitted date, there would be no way for a staff person to get their bid in early and be able to take it. So this is somewhat meaningless to our process.
Correct.
Sounds like we don't need to change anything.
Or does it?
Unless
need to be in-
it could be in the case of property that's not going to the state,
Yeah, I
we
mean,
do run
one
yeah.
off kind of thing.
I- I've seen it with parks and recreation departments. You may have surplus.
Hedge trimmer,
Well, yeah, equipment or pool things. Yeah, we've gone through a process before. We're looking to bids.
I have no problem with changing it to 7 days if that, in case something arises and.
Yeah, it just makes it, I mean, we have the right to make it a little more stringent, so 7 days is making it more stringent than the current law, right?
Okay, sounds like there's 3 counselors that want 7 days, so that's,
And would it have to be worded in the respect that, I mean, the 7 days is fine, but again, if it's something more of like a state auction or something, then maybe put in like
Not gonna make. it
either or,
conflict. Yeah.
mean,
like an
is it-
either or kind of verbiage or something, or?
are we just changing one number in this?
I mean, on which notice of the sale is first publicly advertised, and so I think that as part of that process, it becomes publicly advertised. But perhaps it captures that question.
Yeah, I mean, and how long is yeah, it's just, if it's an auction, this is totally moot, but
Right, yeah, yeah.
you usually want to be the last person to bid, so,
Well, if nobody bid on it or something,
yeah.
still out there.
So if they have to wait, if an employee has to wait 7 days, everybody has to wait 7 days, really. I mean, as far as the results. In other words, you could have a bunch of people coming in, 2 days, 3 days, and then the employee has to wait for 7 days. So the whole thing has to wait 7 days.
Well, when we would, I assume we would advertise it and we would have a deadline. So I don't see that where there's an opportunity to sweep in and then.
Save us, Joe.
Yeah, so I think that's more in reference if we held our own auction,
Right.
which, I mean, we typically don't. We haven't since I've been here. I don't think we have, maybe since Paul's even been here. Typically, when you go to the state site, right, it's gonna be a 14 or 30-day window. Wherein, that would be satisfied by that 7 days. So I think it's kind of solving its own problem there.
So
As far as the noticing.
do you feel we need to make this change?
No, I think I don't think we do.
I think it's more of a symbolic change, right? Given the fact that previously this provision didn't have any, it was completely restricted, right? In terms of city employees eligible for it, but
Where did the 3 days come from? Where did that number come from?
from the model.
No, it came from codes that we've drafted for numerous other cities.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Just
think
in case there's a weekend.
in the interim, since this ordinance was last passed, we've developed other codes that included this provision, so that's what
Okay.
it's.
I'm okay with just leaving it the way it is.
I am too.
Sorry, Gary.
Yeah. I mean, hey, we had the discussion.
That's
Good.
right.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So, okay. If there's no more deliberations, there could be a motion to read by title only, if anybody's interested.
I move that it's read by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's vote to read by title only. That can be an overall vote. All those in favor say aye. Everybody? Okay, motion carries. City manager to read the title by, ordinance by title.
Ordinance number 535, an ordinance of City of Sisters adopting public contracting rules and procedures and replacing and superseding City of Sisters ordinance number 493.
All right. We need a motion to approve and adopt the ordinance.
I move to approve and adopt ordinance number 535.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We're gonna do a vote by roll call. Mayor Breeden, I say aye. Council President Blum,
Aye.
Councilor Letts,
Aye.
Councilor Cobb.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you. We good? All right. Item B is approve IGA number 3 with ODOT for transportation for improvements at US 20 Locust. Oh,
Okay, this is the third amendment to the original IGA with ODOT.
And final?
Nope, we'll at least have one more, maybe two. If we come in under budget, we'll bring a fourth one back to describe how that will be allocated from the different agencies, so. So with that, this is basically laying out the funding plan for the project. And to date, we have contributed a little over 950,000. And then we have an additional little over 473,000 to contribute, which will be budgeted in the 24-25 budget and is required to be deposited in the LGIP account by end of August 2024. That's really it. Pretty straightforward.
all right. Council discussion or questions for Paul? Why are we doing this?
To build it.
Okay, sounds great. I'm in favor of that.
Yep.
Any questions or comments?
I move to approve Amendment 3 of Intergovernmental Agreement number 73,000-001298 with the Oregon Department of Transportation for improvement at US 20 at Locust.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Bid let still January? February?
Thanks, Paul. Next up, approve an agreement with PSU for Civic Leadership Academy.
All right, so you've been hearing me talk about this for quite a while. So this is the agreement with PSU to run the 6-week Civic Leadership Academy, which will have a cohort of approximately 12 local residents. We're partnering with C4C on this endeavor. They'll be doing the recruitment for the applications and the advertising for the program. And as I noted at the last meeting, we were also awarded a $20,000 grant from the Ford Family Foundation towards this 2-year pilot program. This program has been in place in Hillsborough for the past 8 years with PSU leading, and between C4C and ourselves and PSU, they're working on doing this program in some smaller entities. So I believe it's us, and I believe it's LeGrand is also doing this program this year. So it was the Ford Family Foundation. We were working on a 1-year program, and the Ford Family Foundation actually suggested a 2-year program because they really thought that that pilot needed more than 1 year to see how we did and make adjustments and then bring it back. But they were very supportive of us working with not just the city, but with C4C, and PSU has never seen this model either. Hillsborough has always just worked on their own. So that's just, as the mayor would say, the sister's way of working together. The program costs $25,000 per session, $50,000 total. The city over the 2-year timeframe would be up for about $30,000. So we did budget $25,000 for the program for this one program this year, which we will not pay. We'll pay, I think we're getting the check from the Ford Family Foundation for $14,000. And then we'll pay the remainder this year. And then next year they'll pay $6,000 and we'll pay the remainder. So any questions on the agreement? And the minor legal revisions is it's still sitting. PSU wrote the agreement. I did some adjustments and then they're just sending it through for signatures right now. So.
Okay, any questions? I think this is super exciting. I think that this is, again, hitting above our weight, so to speak, as Clayton helped us out with. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it works. And if there's any way you need counsel,
I will be, yes.
help or,
yes.
kind
You will
of
be
that
pulled
PR,
right in.
that PR element, I'd love to be involved. And I'm sure other counselors might want to be involved as well.
Yeah, so it'll be 6 Mondays starting in April probably in these chambers. So we will be leaning on council and some staff for some of those as well.
Yeah, maybe
Help with
just an
those.
opening remark or some.
You'll be opening remarks. We're asking for a counselor at each meeting to do
There
some
you go.
opening
So we're
remarks.
all
So
gonna be
yeah,
involved.
yeah.
That includes-
If you're willing.
Yeah, Gary's gonna get it twice because he's not here. No,
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
right.
Excellent.
All right,
Thank you.
is there any questions? No? Questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I move?
Go ahead.
I move to approve an agreement with Portland State University for $50,000 for a 2-year Civic Leadership Academy and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement with minor legal revisions.
A second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, good. All right, there we go. Very good. What's next? Other business? That sounds like me. It's got my name on it. As you know, we had different people all throughout the city, both staff and counselors interview for open commission and board appointments. And I am here to announce all those appointments. The first thing I want to do is thank everybody who applied. Can't take everybody. That's just not how it works, but we hope that the people that didn't make it will try and re-engage again in the future on a board or a commission.
Or take the Civic Leadership Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah, or join that. This town runs on its volunteers, and that includes half the people up here or more. So, this is exciting stuff, and we appreciate everybody that applied. But moving on with the appointments, the first one is the Planning Commission. I appoint Rick Retzman to a 4-year term. Congratulations. On the Public Works Advisory Board, we have 4 appointments. I appoint Lori Faha to a 2-year term. I appoint Dane Zerung to a 3-year term. I appoint Bill Kelly to a 3-year term. And I appoint John Herman to a 3-year term. On the City Parks Advisory Board, I appoint Eli Madrone to a 3-year term. On the Urban Forestry Board, I appoint Cheryl Pellerin to a 3-year term. I appoint Therese Collerer to a 3-year term. I appoint Ryan McChristian to a 3-year term, and I appoint Patrick Burke to a 3-year term. And to the Budget Committee, I appoint Cheryl Pellerin to a 3-year term, and I appoint Doug Mahoney to a 3-year term. Congratulations, everybody, and thank you again for signing your next 3, 2, 3, or 4 years away. Appreciate it.
We've got a double dipper in there.
We did. Cheryl, thank you so much. I saw Therese up on I think she was here, so thank you so much for being here tonight as well. Next up, now it's time for Joe. He jumped the gun there for a second. He was so excited for the quarterly financial review.
I apologize for that. My trusty computer was on the fritz, so I kind of lost track of the agenda there. So I just wanted to be closer sooner. So anyway, sorry about that.
Please tell me you have an Excel spreadsheet for us.
I do. Oh, always.
Pie charts.
I
love-
apologize for this. I'm not sure how to expand out on the share screen, so it's fairly small.
That's
Yeah.
That's okay. I can see the numbers. I can go over the highlights.
Okay.
No problem. And I can articulate any number that you have a
Joe's
question
nimble.
about.
He's quick.
That's right. Better with my computer here though, so I don't feel right without it. It's my sidekick. So this being the first quarter, the most important thing to look at is the opening fund balance. And that's this green number here. It's about 254. Sorry, my vision's not that great. It's a negative number, but it is green. So negative meaning for this kind of model that we actually have more kind of in our city fund balances than we were expected to have. And that's good, especially when it comes up to, kind of strategic decision making, especially regarding capital projects, things of that nature. So that's a good sign. There's a little bit of a justification of those that saw bigger variances kind of down at the bottom there. Nothing too noteworthy. Typically, that's related to timing, just because when we get to the budget, we're pretty close as to what the expectations are for the ending fund balance. There'll be some differences, such as again, public improvement projects. Sometimes SDC revenue can fluctuate up or down, kind of at the end of the fiscal year there. So that's the first note. And then, as I think I always say, with each different quarter, you'll see a similar trend with all of them, right? So property taxes, 1%. Obviously, the only property taxes we receive in the first quarter are previous property taxes. So property taxes levied right from prior years. So that number is obviously very low. And the second quarter, that will go dramatically up as we receive all those property taxes in November. The second thing is a franchise and park fees. And so that covers our overnight park fee, as that's our only park fee, except for public events. And it also covers franchise fees in the street fund. Those have been actually fairly linear. They were a little bit kind of difficult to predict there as we fluctuated with new franchise agreements and percentages for like the street fund more specifically. And so that's why you see kind of that's a 35% lapse rate. So, on average, first quarter, 25%, which is a quarter. You'd expect to see that a little bit closer, but the overnight park obviously has quite a bit of activity there in the first quarter. So that's the main reason for that 35%. If you looked at the street fund, you'd see more of a kind of sustained 25% lapse rate as we would expect. So kind of going miscellaneous and other income, a large component of that is some of the URA rather transfers that we have. And that'll take place in the later fiscal years. And then kind of moving down, local gas tax, you'll see that's I think at about 30%, and that's pretty typical. Usually we'll see that kind of go a little bit higher as a percentage in the first quarter, then it'll dip down as travel cedes a little bit in the second and third quarters, and typically go back up. But that's tracking on. And we're seeing that just for a point of view as well. That kind of just has fluctuated as the year has gone on. Sometimes it's been, to 199,000, sometimes down 192,000, but it's stayed right around that average of 195. So we're not seeing the hit that some other jurisdictions have seen. More importantly, ODOT. Probably the most interesting part of this on the revenue side is SDCs. So SDCs, if you can see here, are about 9%. So right, again, we'd expect to see those at about 25, but just due to the slowdown in development in town, those are at about 9%. And they're actually, I think it's the personalized nutrients building, commercial building is taking up the majority of that 9%, or else it'll be a lot lower than that. So really, really interesting there to see the slowdown. In years past, that number has been like 40 or 50% already in the first quarter. So it's very shocking to see that in the single digits now as we kind of move into the slower
What's the
development.
story,
plan.
Scott? Get things
Yeah,
moving
right.
out there.
Pound on the pavement.
Yeah.
Some other things that you'll see as trends, the water receipts, those are higher as a lapse percentage. Similar to the gas tax, you'll see that a little bit higher in the first quarter as people use their water a lot more in those summer months and the early fall months, and that'll dip down and kind of level out here as the lower water usage takes place in the second and third quarters, and then goes back up in the fourth quarter. And then sewer receipts, they're at 25%. Those should stay pretty darn linear as well as a lot of the other revenue items. So that's definitely a good sign there. The other interesting item, and the last one I'll kind of touch on for revenue, is the lodging tax. So lodging tax, actually, we saw quite a bit, about $418,000 in the first quarter. I think that July was one of the bigger lodging tax revenue months that we've had since I've been here. It's about $188,000, which was quite large. Went back down. We had a bit of a smoke event, in August, which has tempered those numbers a little bit. But nonetheless, we're on track there with lodging tax, and similar to water, similar to the gas tax, that will dip down obviously in the winter months, then go back up in the last quarter of the fiscal year. That's on the revenue side.
Where does interest?
Interest is in miscellaneous. Yep. That's just kind of where the model puts it. Historically, it's not been too big of a number, but obviously it's quite impactful now. But good question. Any other comments or questions on the revenue side? Okay, on the expense side, thanks, Carrie. Similar to a lot of other first quarters, we don't see a ton of capital projects taking place in this first quarter, and this is no different. So some of the bigger projects, well 3 backup generator, splash pad retrofit project, biosolids removal, which actually we just finished in the second quarter. West Side Pump Station design, which we're working on now. A lot of those and some overlays will be completed as the fiscal year progresses, but not a lot of high dollar capital activity right now. In terms of debt service, we just had our debt service payment last month, our big one for our bonds. So that went out, and then we'll have again the kind of that weird URA city transfer that is considered debt. Yep, that's right. And that will take place in the second and third quarters as well. So that's why that's of course fairly low. And then personal services and materials and services are tracking lower than expectations. So that's good. So, holistically, profits are, revenue's up and expenses are down. So that's always a good sign.
Nothing to worry you or worry us?
No, nothing to worry us. I mean, we have, there's obviously some projects coming up with, we have a projection of what those are going to cost, but, we're not certain of those things exactly. So we'll just keep you up to date as those things progress. Obviously, Paul or Scott, when those things come up, they're good about communicating those to you all.
I'd agree with that. Any questions? All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. See, staff comments. I'll let the city manager run the show.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Just one last thing on that update. I always look at the general fund, it's just an indicator of property taxes, but also the general funded services. One of the first places I look is, how are we doing in those collections? And it's also an opportunity to kind of look ahead. We're talking about goal setting and the upcoming budget. It's your first sign of what kind of maybe surplus you'll be looking at in terms of one-time spending, special projects and things like that you can allocate towards projects. And, it's, of course, general fund money is the most flexible. And so you have more autonomy to use those resources. So having over 100,000 more than expected is great. And then the underspending that we have in personnel and materials is a good sign that will come under budget, and that will feed into the fund balance for next year. And then, yeah, moving on to staff comments, I'll start, and then we'll do our round robin, the last one of the year. So first comment is Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We won't see you again for almost a month, if you believe it. I mean, we'll see you, but not in the council chambers. Council will be taking one of their breaks of the year over the holidays. So I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you on the other side. Dustin Hawkins is here tonight. We thought with the contracting code, it was a good opportunity to have one of our city attorneys from our firm attend a meeting. He is a Sisters resident, so he didn't have to go too far. But it's another opportunity to kind of meet other members of the team from the firm and kind of see how the council works and staff works too. So glad you were able to make it out tonight, and glad the questions weren't too hard on the contracting code.
We're a bunch of jerks.
Be a hard time.
A couple things in the works, start of the year, we've kind of shared this, I think, with council a little bit, but we're planning on rolling out the Affordable Housing Grant Program again, now that we have action with the 500,000 with Northwest Housing Alternatives. We've seen a couple presentations to the council of ideas for the affordable housing funding. So traditionally, we start that program around now in terms of promoting applications and getting the application period open. So we'll start that in January. It'll run through March, and we'll follow the code and the program guidelines to evaluate applications. And then, as I mentioned in goal setting, something coming up for the council will be to meet as the Urban Renewal Board to discuss setting up a similar program for the workforce housing dollars that we've kind of identified in the renewal plan for workforce housing grant program. So that's coming up on the horizon. We do plan to I think, roll out the application notice January 2nd. So it'll be in the newsletter, and we'll promote that, to the developers and for-profit builders, anyone who's eligible for those grant funds. We had a meeting with the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office. We'll be briefing you on that. We're still kind of working through options in terms of a contract amendment versus waiting for renewal of the contract. There's the request of the fourth deputy and running through the finances on that. So the staff will be kind of working through numbers and kind of bringing a recommendation to City Council on how do we proceed with that contract amendment, or waiting another year before we do a new updated contract with Deschutes County. So Joe and I met with them just this week. So we're still kind of going through their counter proposal and working through that. I mentioned no meetings until January 10th. I think that goes for boards and commissions as well. I will plan to be out of the office that week of Christmas. I think Christmas is on a Monday, so it might be kind of late here at City Hall. But we'll make sure we'll have folks here, and we'll be serving the public, but plan on visiting family that week. So out between the 26th and back on the 1st. I'll have my cell phone. You can always reach me if you need to, but I'll be out of the office that week. Okay, Carrie.
Sure.
We'll allow it, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple of things to add on to that. We finished up the interviews for the deputy clerk today, and we'll be doing some background and hopefully making a tentative offer next week. So that's exciting, with the intent for that position to start probably the second week of January. And then went to the Explore Sisters, and Mayor Praden might be able to add to this as well. The Explore Sisters board meeting about a week and a half ago. And as we spoke about, they are currently in the process of getting banners done. So the banners should go up mid-February, and then the branding will be, their new branding will be a rollout sometime probably end of January to mid-February. So that's very exciting. We'll start to see that really coming into what people are used to seeing. And it'll be exciting to see new banners up on those posts. Otherwise, not rolling through the same things that Jordan is. Any questions for me? I'm happy to answer.
Merry Christmas.
Scott. First time tonight, nothing on the agenda.
What's that?
It was your first time up here tonight.
It's been nice,
Yeah.
I have to say.
How's your voice?
Gotta get it warmed up here. Stumble a little bit. Just to give you an update on the UGB amendments process. I've been working with DLCD to structure the grant that we've applied for help with consultant in that project. If you will recall, we don't know quite how much we're going to get yet, but we think it's in the order of 100,000. So trying to work that out where we use one of their approved consultants to help us out, and that will avoid having to go through the RFP process and may get us going sooner than we thought. So hoping to get maybe a kickoff going for that early March, if we can do it. Gonna do a presentation tomorrow. I got invited to do a presentation already on the UGB, the Kiwanis group. Wanted to hear more about what's going on. And so I see that as kind of maybe the first of many presentations to our community groups, similar to how we did it with the comprehensive plan. I think there's a lot of questions out there, and there's a lot of information to pass on, and I will try to do it in a manner that's easily understandable to the public.
When are you doing that? I'm sorry?
Tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's the first one. So we'll see how that goes and kind of use that as the model for future presentations going forward. So we also are putting together a growth management page for the website that will kind of explain how growth management works in Oregon and in Sisters, try to explain a little bit of the history of the Oregon planning law and where a lot of the, the requirements that we implement come from. And also talk about the process we've gone through over the last 3 or 4 years with the comprehensive plan update and updating all of our analyses, like housing and economic opportunities, all that, and how it kind of plays into efficiency measures, how everything kind of plays into where we are now. And then I'll have a project page that the public can go to get all the latest information on public meetings or outreach opportunities for once we start that process. As Jordan mentioned, the dark skies lighting ordinance, I went to Planning Commission last week, and after a couple of years of work sessions with the Planning Commission and the council, happy to say they recommended approval of the amendment. So it'll be going to council here in January, early January. So that's exciting. As far as some other code amendments, we are continuing to work through the short-term rental, the examination or kind of evaluation of our short-term rental program and some of the areas that council would like us to focus on. So Matt Martin put together a survey between the last time he presented to you guys and when he's going to come back later in January. That's going to be sent out to all folks that have a STR license and approval from the city, asking them a bunch of questions about what type of units that they offer for short-term rental. Is it a ADU? Is it a house? Is it a condo? Is it an apartment? How often that they rent them out? Would they be interested in renting out long-term if they had the opportunity? Is that something of interest? And he sent it out and got 30 responses within a couple of days. So I was kind of surprised to see that. People are taking notice and interested in sharing information. So
we're looking at them.
they know we're looking at them.
Are we expecting 100% participation in this survey, or we're hoping for?
I don't think we're expecting 100%, but we're hoping that, get into the 70-80% range would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, we're at 30-ish% now, or
Yeah, we're
above that.
good
right?
start. So, it's not only a good tool to get some information about the characteristics of our short-term rental program, but it's also a great way to make sure that these folks are aware that we are considering some changes to our program. Last thing we want to have is people not hearing about this and not being able to participate. So similar to the mini storage amendments that we did last year. The Matt Martin again shared with me, and I think Paul has some information on this too, but they participated in some evacuation planning that's going on. I think it's being hosted by Nathan Garabee and Deschutes County Emergency Services in accordance with our local fire districts and land managers, trying to kind of talk about different scenarios and of evacuation in event of a natural disaster. And I think it's a series of meetings, and the goal is to have a list of recommendations come out of that. So good to hear that that's going on. So a lot of other things going on, but I'll keep it there. I'll stop there. Any questions?
Any building permits or is that?
Yeah, their building permits are, they've definitely slowed down, but the well hasn't completely been run dry. We have reviewed, and I think they're ready to go, the multifamily permits for Sunset Meadows. There's that multifamily component, and that was the first project out the door. And I think it's just waiting on the partition that they need to do to be able to finalize the building permits for that, and then they're ready to get rolling on those. And I think they've issued, or I think they've submitted also, I think 10 or so of their single family or attached units out there for their first phase as well. And then let's see, we talked about this project earlier, the Woodlands. Gosh, thank you. Is continuing to kind of steadily submit some permits over there as they get requests. They did share with us that their buyers are being very selective in terms of which units they want to have and where. And so it's might require them to do some modifications of their approval to be able to to respond to the consumer. I guess the consumers are really in the driver's seat right now in terms of what they want, what type of units they want and where. So
I'd like to make a comment on how different the current building climate is regarding multifamily in the past. We were begging people to do multifamily. They were always asking to do them last after all the single family homes, and things, the housing environment is just completely flipped on its head. Even in our area, which historically has been mostly single family homes. We didn't have a lot of apartments 20 years ago, and now we have many multifamily buildings. And as you said, in Sunset Meadows, they're going first, and that tells you a lot about what the needs are. And so I think it's a good thing, but at the same time, it's completely different than what it was 20 years ago.
Do you hear from the Woodlands who the buyers are? I think it was the Rooted Homes lady who intimated that the Woodlands is filling up with second home buyers. Is that your perception as well?
Yeah, or folks who are kind of in the retirement stage of life. So yeah, I haven't heard a complete haven't heard a complete summary of what their market is over there, but that's kind of the gist I'm getting to.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm just curious how you know if they're a second home buyer. I mean, how does that how is that information shared?
Well, it's not been shared, so this is kind of anecdotal, probably information that we've received.
There is one way you can kind of maybe see is go onto the county website and find out where their mailing address is, and many times it's out of the area. The owner's mailing address is not the mailing address of the unit itself, which means it's generally not their primary residence. But there's no requirement to do anything else. I mean, there's no law against it, or there's no codes against it.
Yet.
Well, okay. But yeah, that's about the only way you can kind of tell.
True.
Yeah, I think
It's a little trick of the trade.
It is one tool. Yeah.
the people in the Woodlands that are selling the homes have said to various people who they've talked to who their market is. So it is just.
The real estate agents-
It's not reality.
Real estate agents kind
Yeah,
of have a
they
feel.
kinda do
They have a
that too.
feel, but
They
there's
know.
no, again, there's no reporting requirements or.
Right.
anything like that, or-
That's why I was just,
Yeah,
hearsay. a little.
okay. Anything else?
I don't know.
Run, run.
Is this my opportunity?
Yeah, no, good job. Thank you.
Joe and Paul, did you guys rock, paper, scissors to see who goes next?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Paul likes to be the encore.
Yeah.
At least I came up at the right time. So just a couple things. So last week I met with a financial consultant, which actually we met before, I had met before, regarding URA due diligence and financing. So really good conversation with her. She actually helped us out with our bond financing back in 2015-16. And just kind of looked at some mostly URA financing options, but the potential that we'd have to integrate some of those options with the water and wastewater updated plans and what that looks like. So just kind of preliminary right now, but definitely heat up some of those discussions going forward, especially with the renewal agency and what we can do there with the maximum indebtedness based on some of the projects that we just talked about in the goal setting, what we have coming up really in the near term. And then the next time we meet, we will have our campground reservations go online. It'll be really excited to kind of report back to you all how we do on that first day and what what events get taken up and when. That's always really fascinating to see how fast that goes. So and then yeah, we met with the prospective deputy recorders. That was some really good interviews. And again, I think I said this last time, but just some really good qualified people we were able to attract. So it's going to be a hard decision, I think, but a good one. And then, gosh, in our department, yeah, we're just kind of on the back end of our kind of utility billing hosting website and back end meeting, just reconciling payments and how those work with our banking and stuff. And, typically that takes a matter of a couple hours and now it takes a couple days just to kind of get adjusted to how things maneuver and which is no big deal. That's just part of the drill when you do big changes like that. So all good stuff. And staff is really excited about kind of that new tool. And I even thought about it when Republic was kind of talking about the payments that are made over the phone, and how, that's interesting that they wouldn't try to gain an efficiency there and let people make automated payments through the phone instead of taking up service call time for that. So anyway, we're ahead of the curve with them, right? Anyway, that's all I have unless you have any questions for me.
Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not gonna say what I want to say.
thank you.
Yeah.
Keep it real. All right. Hey, Paul, Public Works. And then there was one.
Winner. All right. So yeah, Public Works hit the trifecta this week. We had a Urban Forestry Board meeting on Monday, PWAB meeting last night. Both we gave updates kind of year end, what we've accomplished, the work that they did, money spent, obviously, and then future projects coming up. So I'll let Councilor Plum expand on that if she wants to, but then we're here tonight. So with that, just a little update on the McKinney Butte corridor safety improvements. We got our 30% design from our engineer. We're going to be taking that to the Public Works Advisory Board in January, having them work with us on that. And then we'll bring it to you guys to put it out to bid. So that includes, I believe, 4 new crosswalks, maybe 5, and 3 new raised crosswalks around the schools. So quite a bit of work there, some signage. McKinney Butte corridor seems to be the hot ticket item right now. So we're well underway. We completed the phase 2 of the fuel reduction work on Edgerton, our 10 acres on Edgerton Road. That included the mowing and removal of some of the logs that were left from thinning. It looks great. Looks like a park. So if you know where it's at, go up and check it out. If you don't, let me know. And I'm more than happy to take anybody up there to show the work that was done. Big difference, and ties into work that CEC did last summer underneath their power lines, which is right across the road from our property. So we got a nice fuel break coming into that kind of southern southwest flank of the city.
And a reminder of the infrastructure we have on that property.
What's that?
Can you remind us what infrastructure is on that property up there?
Future infrastructure will be well 5. Yep.
Thank you.
So we got the well 3 generator and VFD improvements being designed right now by our engineering team. We determined that it's going to be a 250 kW generator, which is what we assumed, but we did the load calcs and that's what it came back with. So we'll get that out to bid here probably right after the first of the year and put the order in. The generator is going to be probably 4 months out at least. So we'll be probably wrapping that project up right about the end of the fiscal year.
Perfect.
And then West Side Pump Station, Jordan touched on that earlier. We had a RFP go out. We had a consultant that we have selected to go into contract negotiations with. We basically told them to sharpen their pencil, go back and talk to your sub-consultants and have them sharpen their pencils. So hopefully we can come to where we need to be and we can bring that to you at our January 13th council meeting. And then sustainability plan, just some work that's been done on that. We finished up our lighting projects up at Public Works headquarters, our shop, our wastewater lab, and then City Hall. So see a huge benefit in energy reduction, but kind of an unintended benefit is it's so bright in the building that we're not using as many lights. So we're even saving more money. So that's all I had.
All right, any questions? Anything? Still April 1 for a roundabout?
Right in there. Yep. Yep.
I'll probably ask every time from now until April 1.
Please
So
do.
I love it.
Yep.
I mean, we worked on it so hard for so long that I can't wait I want to be there when there's dirt moving. Let me know.
Every time I talk to Bob, I will ask him for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Groundbreaking? Do we get to do
What's that?
a groundbreaking ceremony?
I
That'd be kind of neat.
You guys have golden shovels?
I haven't done shovels. I've done
Spray
scissors.
paint.
I've got some golden teeth.
Yeah, but then you have to have the silly hat. I don't know.
will let you jump in the yellow excavator, take a real shovel.
I don't care if public's there. I just want to be there. I want to watch it. So
Should be pretty cool.
At some point, can we, this isn't urgent, can we get a, maybe just a small spreadsheet of energy use out at HQ, pre and then post PV installations? Is
Sure.
that what that looks like?
Yeah.
Just
Yep.
curious.
That's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
spreadsheets.
Yeah, Jackson tracks that every month.
Okay.
So we got the data.
That'd
Yeah,
be pretty
love to
easy.
see that.
Yep.
Print a PDF, man.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, it's up to us. Anything from Gary and, okay. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if this is appropriate, but
Oh,
I'm
no.
wondering, are we going to be giving the leadership bonuses for Christmas? Just wondering how that works.
So we do
Well-
employee recognition. We're having a lunch on Friday. And we typically do a little something for employees.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
But what about you?
Public sector.
Why don't we have some conversations one-on-one, and see how much interest there is. I don't think we're gonna make a decision here tonight, right? Probably. So-
Because it has to be public. And if it's going to be before Christmas, this is it.
Is that true? It has to be public?
What, if we're
I'm
giving,
looking at Carrie and I don't know why
Our
I'm looking at
decision.
Carrie.
I
Our decision, we can make that decision at any time, I think.
I don't want to speak for the management team. I just, we are public employees.
Yeah.
We are compensated. It's typically not normal to get bonuses. Most places don't do bonuses. The council's been very generous over the last couple of years with the high inflation to do mid-year COLAs. And again, I don't want to speak out of turn for management, but I think they feel, well compensated and appreciated by council. So.
I mean, it's nice to even hear it, I'm sure of that.
Yeah, that would be where, in November, you would whisper to one counselor and see if they were interested and maybe, then it's.
So I blew it.
Go and, yeah, you're a little late on.
I not only
it-
blew out my knee, I blew the opportunity.
Yeah.
No, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just late.
Okay,
Obvious.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
All right, and then my other thing was, so on that earlier conversation about this, thought about having a, value relative to getting things out to the local community that they could do bids and stuff. There's just really no legal way of doing that. I mean, it's like preferential.
Preferential
Yeah.
treatment.
Yeah.
I'm sure that for all the lesser mounted contracts that everybody here knows what companies are here.
Right.
I don't know that they could always underbid something that was regional, but I'm sure that they have a working relationship with all the people and they know who can do the job and who can't, and
Okay.
have long-standing relationships. So I'm sure where we can, I know with our food and all the incidental little things that happen, we're very much local.
I can give you an example. When Paul needs a few trees, there's only a few guys around town that can provide that stuff. And I know, generally they're here in town because they're available. They're a known quantity. It's under the amounts that we've been talking about, and it's just, they're happy to provide, right? So I think that, on the bigger stuff, we're required to advertise, and when we do, it's 99, it's in the Nugget a lot of the time, and that's about as local as you can get, because I can tell you a lot of people in Bend, don't look at it very much.
Well, like for an art design, you mentioned, I've forgotten your name, sir, I'm sorry.
Dustin.
Dustin mentioned that, direct contracts, from 100K or under.
Mhm.
That's for
Under-
architects and engineers. As an example, that was
That's,
for
yeah,
architects
so
and
if oh, okay, so it wouldn't be artistic work
Yeah, and like the roundabout, there's gonna be an art
piece.
piece, and there's a design process that we'll probably make public like we did on the first roundabout.
Okay.
And I think there was almost 100, if not 100 submissions last time that was narrowed down to 3.
Mm.
And 2 of the 3 finalists on the last roundabout were local.
Okay,
So.
so we already do it.
Well, I think we do it in a lot of ways that we can do it. Obviously, again, with those different thresholds and stuff. There's some ways you can't do it at all, and that's those big ones where you have to go through the whole process because it's mandated to be that way.
Thank
Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, as we discussed tonight, those thresholds went up, so.
Yeah.
Much more leeway now.
So it does help us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that's something maybe a contractor or your provider can work into their bid. They can make that argument like, hey, I'm local and therefore X, Y, and Z, or you're gonna save on travel, you're gonna save on, we're more available, it's kind of up to them to make that argument, but.
Okay.
And you can see to some degree in the bills, there's a lot of local purchasing.
Yeah, when we're signing those checks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the checks. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay.
You got nothing? Okay.
No, I got,
I'm just kidding.
always got.
No, I'm just kidding you.
Always got something. Attended the superintendent's coffee and just trying to remember, big topics there. I mean, obviously the crossings at the new elementary school. They're still hoping that the building will be done in May and, trying to get everybody moved over from this school to that school, the new school, right at the very end of the school year, because they have to fit that in with the teacher contracts and their work days and all that kind of stuff. So, it's kind of carving out one day and, hey, let's get a bunch of pickups and drag everything over. You know, so maybe that's something we can help out with a little bit one way or another. They also have to do, you know, a bit of downsizing and purging of things as well. So I feel that is, I've worked on those kind of events before, and managed them. So I'm hoping that maybe there's some opportunity for some of those materials to be, you know, reused or, you know, donated to local
SBRD?
organizations or SBRD or other nonprofits. So I attended the Parks Board meeting. Gary, Council Ross was out of town, so he asked me to sit in his place. And, you know, Scott was there as well. So there was the representatives from the community garden group were there in force and with lots of letters and stuff. So they've bought themselves 1 year, one more year at the airport, but they most certainly need a space in 2025, which is something they need to, you know, settle relatively soon so they can start planning. It's that chicken and egg thing. They can't really raise money if they don't have a spot, you know, designated. And, you know, their first preference is public land, city park land. I think just because of that feeling of permanency, and that they won't get kicked out as easily. But you know, it is a fantastic resource. So, you know, I think anything that you know, the city can do to lean in on that and help them find a home, I think is well worth the effort. So they're very well organized and motivated. So good on them. The park bench dedication over in Creekside Park, I think, is tentative May 24th. Scott, you said that you saw no, somebody in the group.
Yeah, I think July 20, yeah, it's in July.
Oh, July 24th. Okay, I don't know.
There is an image of it in progress. It's beautiful.
Okay, nice.
Pretty cool.
And then, you know, Scott did a nice year-end review for everybody in the Parks Board of how much they accomplished, including a parks plan and all that good stuff. So I think everybody appreciated that, to hear, you know, they've made a lot of positive work happen. And then, I think Jen Holland did an update on everything that, you know, she accomplished with SPRD in the last few months. And she's spending a lot of time on, you know, the negotiations and the process for moving into this building with the school district and building up that resource. She did say that she's finding and I think this was a takeaway for us as well, she's finding that she's having to reiterate a couple of points constantly. And one of them is that, you know, the sports courts over here are going away because of the roundabout. She says there's constantly being asked about that, and people are not aware that those are going away because that roundabout will be kind of sitting right on top of that corner of the property. So maybe, I don't know if that's something that we can also kind of get ahead of. And
Yeah,
when that
before they start construction.
yeah,
we're
when that
gonna have to
bulldozer
have some
goes through that
pictures in the
part,
Nugget. Some,
we're gonna hear about
again.
it. And then I was on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee at a Zoom meeting for the county last week. And again, just kind of a little bit of talking about goals for the next year. I think I'm, you know, helping to improve some communications around the work that group does. And also, you know, there was a lot of effort in that group in the last couple of months to promote the transportation system plan for the county. That has not yet been voted on by the county commissioners. Comment period stopped last week. Public comment stopped on that. There's a lot of contentious back and forth on proposed bike and pedestrian routes, which was the first time ever in the county TSP that bike ped was actually included, which is
Interesting.
interesting is the word, considering they're responsible for, you know, Tumalo and Terrebonne and places with lots of pedestrians. But so they're gonna have they're not gonna vote on it yet. They're gonna have a work session on it, close public comment coming up in a couple weeks, I think. And then hopefully maybe by the end of the month vote on it or something. But that process is still slowly moving along on the county side of that. So that's it.
Okay, any questions?
I have one question that I forgot to ask. And so on the assignments that we have for like me on COIC, is that 1 or 2 years?
Those are 2 years, so they roll when the council new elections come. So January 25 will be those appointments.
Thank you.
If you want out really bad,
I don't want to.
okay.
Yeah, any track on regional solutions and how that, yeah, how's that? Is there regular meetings at all yet? Have you talked to the rep?
The last update was that there's still no negotiation for the IGA, I think it is. So,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Well, let me know,
Yeah.
I don't know what I can do, but, I can call the governor. Hello.
I mean, there's a rep, there's a central.
Yeah,
organ
Yeah, there's a rep,
Now,
There's a
but
rep,
there's,
but he's a rep of two
Cent-
different, two different
well, yeah,
regions.
central and south central Oregon.
Yeah, so, okay.
Weird.
You got anything?
The Public Works Advisory Committee did meet last night, and Paul and Jackson did a great job in updating all the wonderful things that they have had an opportunity to participate in that have been accomplished and are on the agenda to be accomplished. To some degree, I think they're a little bit overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, it's amazing how much stuff they're going to have an opportunity to participate in, and we're going to have 2 new people starting in January. And the one thing that they did say, which I hear in many occasions from us and other groups, is they would like to do more field trips to actually go see the site, walk the site that we're talking about for a new well or a sidewalk or whatever. And that was encouraging. When they were asked, well, what would you change about this meeting as a time, the time, how often, all those kinds of things. And other than the slight adjustments, they were, happy with the way things were, but, wanted to, couldn't really think of anything that would be a vast improvement. I proposed snacks. Somehow I just thought that, that would be a little bit of a help, but I didn't get a second, so I don't know that that's going to happen, but they were all pretty, I think that they genuinely are interested, and, they're learning, and so we're bringing on some great talent. So I think we'll get a lot more questions about how and why, because the people coming on have such an extensive background that I think that they will be more challenging, which is the point of having an advisory committee. So, and they also, wanted to know, well, what does council want from us? And so, that's something we need to relate to them. Why are they there? What do we need from them? And in what form, and reassure them that we do care what they have to say. And I just say, well, we have any number of in categories of things that come before us, and we cannot all be genuine experts in them all. And so we very much appreciate having a group of people that are more probably have more background in that particular area than many of us do, and us to have a genuine first look from people from the community, so that something doesn't get to our level and we find out, well, we're way ahead of where our general community is, that they're kind of a sounding board for that too.
Just imagine if we had to do all the work of all these boards.
Exactly.
We're talking parks, we'd have to talk about parks at the details that they do.
Yeah.
Public Works, PWAB, Urban Forestry. Obviously we couldn't do the budget committee too, because we need them alongside of us, but yeah, we don't, we're volunteers as well, right? So thank you to
And
them.
the only other thing is I have finally been contacted by the regional houseless coordinating group and asked for availability of times and whatnot. So what the goals and everything for that will be interesting to see. Have a Charo meeting tomorrow where we will be actually discussing physical sites where possible homeless campgrounds and or parking lots or sundry others could possibly be after winnowing down hundreds and hundreds of public sites down to a few. So that should be an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Sisters not included.
Well,
Well, you're there.
apparently,
Well, I mean, in the sites.
apparently we're failing.
Mm.
Are you,
Yeah, I'm done.
anything else?
Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna talk about COTV, but I guess I won't.
There was
I,
something Paul said you could talk about. Did you already do it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was,
that
that was our Public
that
Works
was the
Advisory
PWAB.
Committee.
That was the PWAB board.
Okay,
Yeah. I wasn't gonna open up with Central Oregon,
Yeah,
Daily, but I might as well now. I mean, look, everybody kind of, most people probably saw that and they didn't pose our city in a great light. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Wasn't accurate reporting. We do a lot of stuff and I don't need to defend us. We're doing great stuff. That's the end of that.
We have a nice list though that Carrie created for us.
Well,
If
yeah,
wants
I
to
mean,
see
and,
it.
and it's a great list and I can read them all off. I don't think we have to go blow for blow with those guys. They're the press. That's what they do. They make stories. They're in it for clicks. I want to talk about Explore Sisters. Thank you, Carrie, for leading off with that. Explore Sisters is about to turn a corner, I think. It's been a lot of inward stuff for a year. Scott's right at his 1 year mark. He's under a review right now, and I think everything's great. The board appreciates what he's done so far. And now that the branding is concluding and going to be released and a website in January or late January, there's going to be a platform for Explore Sisters to kind of flip over and go, okay, we've been looking in for a year. We've got a budget for this next year. Their budgets are calendar year. So they'll be in their second budget and they'll be able to kind of start doing the things that people see, as opposed to a lot of the setup work. And I'm really excited for that organization. I see all of the good groundwork that they've done, getting policies and procedures and doing strategic planning. They're still doing that and getting things set up that it's just time and they, everybody kind of feels it and it's going to they're going to start doing different things and doing some really cool advertising. Obviously the banners is kind of one of the first things that's going to roll out. Just the colors in the branding are exciting, it was like 7 or 8 colors and the colors look like sisters and, there's fonts and there's, there's way more than that. Because I'm not a branding expert by any means, but I'm just telling you, I think everybody's going to like it. And I think it's going to put them on really good footing for the next, for the future. I think the next 12 months, again, it's going to kind of just be some really cool stuff. I want to talk about affordable housing for a minute. We're talking about revisiting, the housing fund and things like that. And I'd like to encourage all of us to try and think about things outside the box that we can, maybe increase that fund somehow. Because at the rates that we're growing, we're going to have to continue to, we're not just going to do 1 or 2 projects and then stop doing it. It's going to be a need that we all have to deal with, not just this year and next year, but, for the next 20 years. And I think that if we do it right now and set this fund up and maybe some, ways to fund that fund, that it'll be a lot easier in the future for people to make some decisions when the next council rolls over and 20 years from now when the next city manager comes in. So whatever. So I just want to encourage everybody to kind of think about that in our goal setting. It doesn't mean we have to do all the work this year to set up for the next 20 years, but I think that we have to make sure that every step we take with that fund and how we put the money into it, that it kind of goes up with the growth, because it's just going to have to. I mean, as we get bigger, we're going to have to create more affordable housing each step further down the road. Cocoa annual luncheon is on Monday. I sent out an email. Jennifer's going to be able to go. No? You're no,
I
Gary's a no.
can't.
No, it's fine. It's totally
I would
fine. I,
like to.
yeah, I wish I had sent it out earlier to save the date. I was not good with that.
Well,
But-
mine's just my knee. I just can't.
No, I understand. Monday's gonna be really cool. Coco this is the 11th annual one. In the past, it was just about, regional city partners, and then last year we invited, and legislative partners, obviously, because people from the legislature will be there, from the area. But last year we invited the county commissioners as well, from Deschutes County, and this year there's gonna be county commissioners from Crook, Jefferson, and Deschutes. So it's really becoming a big collaborative. We're gonna talk a lot about water, but we're gonna have other issues too. There's gonna be a lot of speakers, and I'll be part of the hosting team, obviously, as well. So it's really fun. And boy, it's a time when you don't get county commissioners and legislators and city council members and mayors and city staff all in the same place. Jordan's gonna be there too. So thank you for doing that. We'll give you a report next January, or maybe in one of the Friday reports, we can get out some information on that. Today, I visited the Bend Veteran Village.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been there before? Okay, so here we go on homelessness. I'm gonna open a Pandora's box a little bit. This is the first time that I visited a homeless site where I felt it worked really well. They have 15 cottages with the main building. The main building is for showering and cooking and communal living, such as watching TV or laundry or whatever. They have 15 buildings. They have 13 homeless veterans in there. They're allowed to stay for 18 months. They're encouraged to get a job. They have mental health resources from the county come in once a week, so they can do that. They also have ways to get medical attention if they need to. And it's working really, really well. It's on county land behind the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office down there on the north side of Bend. The hardest part, if you ever want to do one of these villages, and you can probably ask the city of Redmond about Oasis Village and their thing is, how is it administered and who's doing it? That's always the biggest issue, because you can get all the funding and get the land and get people in there, and if it's not run properly, you wasted your time. And I think that, applicants are important and partners are important, and that's why we're very deliberate about what we do here in Sisters, and there's nothing wrong with that. I went as a Band of Brothers, Sisters chapter board member to evaluate it, so we might give them a little money. And I think we're gonna give them a couple $1,000, which is a lot of money from our little thing of, 80 guys or whatever. But I really went there as well as the mayor and just kind of talked to the director of Covo, who Covo they're running it, they're the administering it, and they are finding it to be very valuable, working well. They've been there a couple years now, and they've only had 2 people leave on their own volition, and they've had to put 2 other people out. Mainly because of drinking. They're not allowed to drink on the premises. You can go drink outside after if you have a job and you want to drink, just don't bring it in, right? And it's the first time I've seen a model that I think can be replicated. And I don't think it has to be veterans. I think it could be transitional type housing for general houselessness. Now, would it work here in Sisters? I don't know. I'm not there yet, but I think that it could be something that could be considered if you have the right partner, if you have the land.
Right, yeah.
I
But
mean, I think
at least they've done it, so you have,
An example.
they know
it's close,
what works and what doesn't work.
and it's close by to go look at.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've been doing this for, so now I've been on council for 5 years, and I finally see something that works. If anybody of you want to see it, I will take you down there or meet you down there. And I know the director who's there every day now. I have his.
Yeah, I'd
we're-
like to see that.
Yeah, I think it's worth the trip. I have some photos too. I will send them to you, Carrie, so you can send them out. And I was just really encouraged by it. My gosh, something that works.
Yeah.
Yay. It's a small model. It's only 15. They're gonna add 7 more units though. After 2 years, they're gonna expand by almost 50%. It helps to have county land though, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'll say that out loud for sure. And
Do you know if they're having trouble getting funding? Evidently not if they're expanding.
no, Covo, apparently
COVO stands for Central Oregon Veterans Organization.
outreach.
Outreach.
They are a nonprofit. They do much more than just the Veterans Village. But whatever fundraising that they're doing, and you know, they get private money, they get state money, they get money from all different pots. But apparently the budget they have for this is not nearly as much as you think it would be. And they do provide some food, but they're trying to get people to transition, veterans in this case, and transition from house assist. Figure out your life, you got 18
Right,
months.
yeah.
Go get a place.
Yeah.
And come on, that doesn't happen all the time in this business. Let's face it, it's very difficult to do. So, I'm encouraged by it. I love to see it. I met one veteran there. And again, I took pictures and it's cute. And they have a fence around it. And I loved the explanation about it. And it's got a gate that closes at night, that they're allowed to go in and out because not all of them work during the day. Some of them work night jobs and have to come back in. But the fence isn't to keep them in. It's to keep people out of their place. I mean, it's security, not for them. For,
Yeah,
I mean,
hopefully they feel that way too.
It's a gated community.
Yeah.
and I gotta say, and I will give you a little bit of anecdotal stories from the people in the area. Now I didn't interview the neighbors myself,
Mhm.
but they had a big fight with the NIMBYism and the neighbors
Right.
not
To start
wanting
out
it
with,
there.
yeah.
There's houses around there.
Mhm.
We all know about that that discussion.
Yeah.
It was not thought of very much at first. And now the neighbors bring cookies and they're bringing gifts for those 13 veterans that live in the 15 houses. They only have 2 vacant ones and they're always looking. They do outreach. So just so you know, Covo does outreach in the whole homeless community throughout the county. So they go out to China Hat. They know all the conditions and they're always just looking for veterans that are ready to take that next step. Because not all of them are. But the ones that can take that next step, they interview and they bring them in and then they get invited to live in that community. And yeah, so far so good. I have really enjoyed it. So I will probably visit there again, maybe with some of you guys. And second to last thing, we signed checks. We won't be doing that tonight.
Oh, yay.
I want to thank Jordan and Andrea for helping me out with that. And lastly, Merry Christmas, everybody. Hey, staff, have a good holiday. You know what I mean? Don't sweat it, you know, just kind of just shift it down a gear if you can.
Because January is gonna be intense.
Yeah.
April 1 will be here before we know it when we move in dirt. So
No, I
And-
hope so.
And happy Hanukkah. That's-
happy
that's
Hanukkah
right
and
now.
all the other ones.
Festivus, winter solstice. This is,
Season's great.
if you're into, I'm not into astronomy, but I always track this. Yesterday was at least in this area, was the earliest sunset will be. From now on, sunset will get later and later.
Even though the day's not getting longer
Right.
for another week.
Right, but sunset will start getting later and later from today on, if that makes anybody feel better.
Jennifer with the stats. Anything else? Any questions? Comments? We're done.